Okay, namaste everybody. Welcome. We are back again, and today we'll be doing a lesson on Dhanishta Nakshatra. It's not going to be a lesson, it could be a blockbuster, another mega blockbuster movie in the making. So let's start with Eve G. Eve G, if you want to start with the prayer, and then we can, move forward with the Nakshatra.
Okay. Om Gam Ganapati Namaha. Om Aim Saraswati Namaha. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurudev Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, thank you, Eve G. And we'll get started with today's lesson on Dhanishta. We might also have, Kapiel joining us later. That's what he has said. We don't know whether he's going to join, but if he can join, because he's in the midst of doing his movie on Ketu. So he said if he can, he will definitely squeeze in some time to join us. But let's start with Dhanishta. Let me get a few points that came to my mind as we were speaking just before we started recording the session. We were talking about sleep, and Dhanishta could also have something to do with sleep. Interestingly, we were talking of how much sleep each of us get. That has been always a problem for many of us. I definitely had sleep related issues, but this nakshatra can also have some clues to sleeping as well. Why I would say that is, first of all, you need to know that this nakshatra Dhanishta is associated with the Astavasus, the 8 elemental gods. Vasu means ray of light, okay, or something which is excellent or which tries to bring goodness. Now, when you understand the word Vasu, Vasu means what dwells inside. Vasu, Vasu. So what we have is, one is a container that encompasses, which is the container, and the other is the indweller. So that which resides within. Okay, so this is what the concept of Vasu is. Let me explain this to you. There are 8 Vasus. They are called as Astavasus. One is the container, the other is the indweller. So one is the owner and the other is the tenant. So for example, let's say one of the Vasus is Prithvi or Dhara. We say earth, which supports. So that is the container, Prithvi. And inside Prithvi, which is inside earth, we have Pavaka or Agni or Anala, which is the hot fire, which lives inside. So he is the indweller. So inside the core of the earth, we have Agni. Okay, so that makes a pair. So Prithvi, Dhara, and we have Pavaka, Agni or Anala. The next pair is Antariksh. Antariksh means all pervading space. And then we have Vayu or Anila, who's wind, deified wind god, who is the indweller. Okay, that's the second pair. The third pair is Dais and Prabhasa, which means sky or splendor. Okay, and who's the indweller inside the sky? It is Aditya or Pratyusha, who's the sun. The sun is the indweller in the sky. Okay, then finally we have Nakshatrani or Dhruva, the pole star or all the stars. So that is the container. And who's the indweller? It's Chandrama or Soma, who's the moon god, the deified moon god. So you have Prithvi and Agni. One is the container, the other is the indweller. Then we have Antariksh and Vayu or Anila, which is the all-pervading space, and we have wind in it. Then we have Dayas or Prabhasa, which is the sky, and Pratyusha, who is the Aditya, who is the sun. And then we have Nakshatrani or Dhruva, which is the stars or the pole star. And then we have the Chandramas. Now, interestingly, Prabhasa, the mythological story is all about Prabhasa. Prabhasa, who had stolen the cow, the celestial cow, of Rishi Vashishta, if I recollect. And Rishi Vashishta really finds out through his yogi powers who has stolen it that they know it's Prabhasa. He curses them, and they are all cursed to be born as mortals. And we know the story. And somebody else can probably narrate that story because I'm not very good at storytelling. So you can say, Ganga had they went to all of them went to Ganga so that they can have human birth. And there was also this pact saying that when Ganga made herself available for King Shantanu, so she had a pact with him. The pact was, you'll never say anything to whatever I do. The day you say something, I'm going to leave you. That was the pact of matrimony. It's a pre-Neptunial pact that you have, or an agreement. Today, people have other things with their pre-Neptunial agreements, but those times, Ganga only asks for, don't say anything, whatever I do. So you can see that, all the seven um, Vasus, one by one, were drowned by Ganga as soon as they were born because they had to be released from the curse, except for Prabhasa. Prabhasa, I said, is the sky. So Prabhasa is the last one to be born. And when King Shantanu sees all of this, when the eighth child is being drowned, he says, no, you can't drown this child. I've seen 7 children being drowned by you. Okay. Now this child goes on to become, Devavrata because of the great oath he took. And also he is called as Bhishma. Okay, Bhishma Pitama, the patriarchal king who ruled over the Hastinapur. Now, why I say about sleep, we were talking about sleep. Bhishma, first point I want to make with this nakshatra. Bhishma is very strongly associated with this nakshatra for the reason that one, he was one of the Vasus who was reborn in the mortal form. Secondly, this nakshatra, Dhanishta, also you see that, what is very prominent is Bhishmashtami. That is the day when he chose to leave his mortal body. That's a very significant. Ashtami, the 8th Tithi, the 8th lunar day. Again, Ashtavasus, very strong connection there. Okay. And Bhishma was sleeping on a bed of arrows till Uttarayana started. And he was killed by a Napunsak, which means a eunuch. Shakuni. Not Shakuni. What's the name? Shikhandi. It was Shikhandi through which he was killed. He said, I'm not going to fight against Shikhandi, who's a transgender. Okay, so that brought, but look at what I was talking about, the sleep. He was on a bed of arrows for a very long period of time, waiting for the right opportune moment for the doors of the heaven to open up. Okay. So it was the belief that Uttarayana begins and the doors of the heaven open up. So he was waiting for that. And even in that, he chose Bhishma Ashtami to leave his body. That's one thing. Second thing, I also correlate Ashtavasus with the 8 directional gods as well. They are called as Ashtadikpalas. Typically, we have Dashadikpalas, which are, the 10 elemental, the 10 directional lords, which include Brahma and Vishnu. Because Brahma looks at the zenith and Vishnu controls the nadar. And then we have the Ashtadikpalas, we control the 8 cardinal directions. So, which are all of them? We have Indra, we have Yama, we have Nairati, we have Ishana, we have Vayu, we have Varuna, we have Kubera. Did I miss anything? I don't know. So, and Agni, Agni. So, southeast, east you have Indra, southeast you have Agni, south you have Yama, southwest you have Nairati, then you have Varuna in the west, northwest you have Vayu, and north you have Kubera, and north east you have Ishana. So all of these elemental gods control and give you the wealth. That's why these 8 elemental gods also have a significance with the this nakshatra. Why? Because one of the nakshatra, the shakti of this nakshatra is called as a khyapa yatri shakti, which means to give you a lot of name and fame in every direction you go into. So the Ashtadikpalas have to be worshipped. They have to be within your control to have your name spread, like Pradvamsha, like, Swati is Pradvamsha, which means spread, scatter. But this is scattering in all directions, the 8 directions the Astadikpalas are. So it's not only the elemental gods, but also the Dikpalas have a very important say with this nakshatra to give you Khyapa Yatri. It means to give you so much of recognition, fame, and name in the society. Okay. So this nakshatra, as per me, has very strong connection with also with banks, treasuries. Many of these themes also come into, because money, wealth, whatever money you keep in Swiss bank accounts or in undisclosed accounts. Okay, that has something to do with this nakshatra. Now, one more point I wanted to say about this nakshatra is a very important concept of Shankara or Shiva, which comes and associated with this nakshatra. Now, this nakshatra, as many of you know, has a connection with drums. Now, this drum is not a normal drum; it is a hand drum of Shiva, which is called as a damru. Okay, and one hand of Shiva is the damru, and the other hand, if you look at Shankara, the specific form of Rudra, he has a flying antelope or a deer in his hand. He's holding one of the legs. Look, when you talk about the deer, there was a lion who came across. So this lion is significant, saying, "Don't forget me," because the animal associated with this nakshatra is a lion. Okay. Now I don't remember whether it's the male lion or the female lion. Somebody can clarify that. What's his name, Evji?
It's a female.
Okay, it's a female.
Female lion.
Okay, it's a female lion. And is she female?
Yes, she's female.
Okay, there you are. So she's a feline, which is a cat from the family of the cats. So you can say that, she's reminding us again.
Dr. Patty, just real quick, Mars is also a cat. And who
Yeah.
exists in Dhanishta?
True. Exactly. Yeah.
Mars.
True.
Yeah.
Mars. Very, very true. So also, when we think about this thing of all the nakshatras which are associated with Mars, we have, there you are. You talk about the Damru, and our Damru Baba has come. That's the Damru. That's the hand drum. You can see here. Okay. He's trying to. So that's the Damru. And from the Damru, they say all the grammar and the sounds through what he generated, all the grammar came out, or all the syllables came out. The Sanskrit syllables have
It looks
come
like,
out.
the conical time. If you see in relativity, it looks like this is the present moment.
Yeah.
This is past. This is the future, and the conical time shape. The space-time diagram, the Minkowski space-time diagram looks like all similar to the shape of Damru.
Yeah. Very interesting. It's called a drum, a hand drum. And what is this nakshatra also correlated with? It's called Shravishta. Shravishta means which follows Shravana, Shrunu, Shrona, which means to hear. So last lesson that we did on Shravana Nakshatra, I mentioned that the three smallest bones in the human body is in the ears. And inside the middle ear, we have three smallest bones. They're called the hammer, the anvil, and the stapes. But what is following that is called as the eardrum. Why do we call it the eardrum? Which is very strange. So we see that there is a connection, something to do with Dhanishta and Shravishta. Shravishta means what can be heard and can be interpreted, what you hear. Okay, so it has a very strong connection with the eardrum, and it could have a connection also with your heartbeat, because that is, that we have, there are two cats now. We have Puro Bhadrapada and as well as okay. So that's another connection that we see. with the, the heart related things that I've also seen. So there are so many other things that I also wanted to share, but these are largely, what I have come across. Okay, one more point I wanted to make. We talked about the Mars nakshatras. There are nakshatras in the Vimshotri Dasha system. They are all associated. Which are the three nakshatras in Vimshotri Dasha which are associated with Mars? Which is, we have, Mragashirsha. Mragha means deer. Then we have Chitra, which is the most shining, the lustrous, nakshatra, which gives you like a coral or a pearl or something. And then we have Dhanishta. Okay, so in Vimshotri Dasha, these are the three nakshatras associated with Mars. Now, what is very significant with these Mars nakshatras is they are called as Pushkar nakshatras. Pushkar, which means two petaled. So if you can consider each of the padas of the nakshatras as each a petal of that flower. Okay. So it is like the four limbs, the four padas. Why we call it padas? These are the legs. So these padas are like our two arms and two legs, and they drag us towards our final journey. These four padas. So if you call them, associate them with the petals. So you have three, in Vimshotri Dasha, we have three types of nakshatras, which are called as three Pushkar or three Pada nakshatras and Vipada nakshatras. So Sun and Jupiter are called as, three Pushkar, three Pushkar nakshatras or three pada nakshatras, because one pada will fall in one rashi, three padas will fall in another rashi with the Sun and Jupiter. Now, this is the only nakshatra where we see a connection that is being formed between earthy sign and an airy sign. So Mars nakshatras connect the rashis, which is Earth Rashi, with the air Rashi. And that's why you see Shiva holding a flying deer, but he's controlling it. One is with the earth connection, 2 feet, and 2 feet are in the air. That's the same thing that you see. And that's why, you can see he controls this Martian, not the Martian, these nakshatras which are connected, which are petaled. Okay, or the Pushkar, the two petaled nakshatras, also has a very strong connection with Shiva. You see, every nakshatra you see, there is some connection with Shiva there. Okay, so even with the Mragashirsha, that is the Orion, that is the hunter who actually slayed the head. Here also you see that you have Hara. Hari, half of the nakshatra is Hari and other half is Hara. Now, one of the very important parts of Dhanishta nakshatra, I will tell you, and then I will hand it over to Aditya because he goes in a very detailed manner. So do other people. I always come unprepared. I come with some few pointers and then I try to stitch something around it. Okay, now Dhanishta is one nakshatra, which I say it falls in the 10th house, starts in this 10th house and goes to the 11th house of the natural zodiac. Now, this is the first nakshatra which falls in the Akash Tattva, which is the ether element. That's why this nakshatra which follows Dhanishta, especially the third pada, okay, and the fourth pada onwards, it is called as a Panchaka nakshatras, which means 4.5 nakshatras are called as Panchak. What are the 4.5 nakshatras? The 4.5 nakshatras are the full of Revati, full of Uttara Bhadrapada, full of Purva Bhadrapada, full of Satabhishak, and half of Dhanishta. Half because as soon as you go into the Aquarius sign, so which is the third pada and the fourth pada of Dhanishta, they fall in Aquarius. From then onwards, they are called as Panchak. Especially when anybody who dies or there is death when moon is transiting these nakshatras, then special remedies are recommended for such souls, because if they die, especially in Tripada, that means they say, especially what is Tripada there? It is Purva Bhadrapada. Dvipada would be Dhanishta. So it is a belief in some of the communities in the southern part of India, where the priest will say, if special rights, final rights are not given to that soul, he will take an additional 2 people from the family within 1 or 2 years. Or if it is Tripada, the soul will take an additional 3 people with it from the same family. Now, this has not been researched by me. I'm just trying to say, and this is not to create fear in anybody's mind, but when you come to the southern part of India, there are special Shanti pujas which are recommended to pacify the Panchaka Nakshatras, especially when they are in Purva Bhadrapada or in Dhanishta Nakshatra. They are said to be even more difficult, especially when they come in the third and the fourth pada. When moon is transiting, if a soul passes away, then special prayers and special Shanti is recommended in the southern part of India. I don't know whether this is there in the northern part of India, and I do not know where is the source from which these rituals are being followed. I'm sure maybe one of the panelists here would be able to throw more light if they know about this. This is what I've just heard, and I'm just, a medium of transmitting this knowledge to you. So these were some of the key points, and I will definitely talk about a few other points as we go along. But one more thing I wanted to point out with this nakshatra, there is a very strong correlation I've seen with dolphins. Of course, Delphinus is associated with it. What is it called, Aditya? Sadal Sud. What is the nakshatra or the tara which is associated with it? Delphinus?
Alpha Delphinus is the star, the main star, and Delphinus is the constellation.
Right. Okay. So dolphins is definitely one of the themes that I've seen. Another theme that I also have seen with this nakshatra is also I've seen a lot of miscarriages in case there are themes of miscarriage or abortion. And this has been one of my research areas in most of my consultations in my practice. Sometimes when I see a difficult nakshatra, difficult planet coming there, then I definitely ask those individuals whether their mother had, any miscarriages. And I've seen, because of the connection that we see with the mythology directly, where Ganga, goes and drowns all her, offsprings. So that is a very strong correlation that I've seen, and that has come out very true in many of the cases. I don't know what is the viewpoints of the other panelists here, but definitely we can start with Aditya. So Aditya, I think you can go ahead. And from time to time, I'll keep adding. One more very important thing that I wanted before I forget, I have seen benefit of people who keep Mount Meru in their houses who have Dhanishta Nakshatra for both spiritual energy and for materialistic energy. There might be a very strong correlation with Mount Meru and maybe, crystal dolphins that can bring in, some connection with this. So these are some of my observations. I might have some more, but yeah, any thoughts? Any of you want to share anything of what I've said? Anything that you want to add to what I've said before? Yeah, Evji, please go ahead.
Just so I don't forget, as Aditya talks, because I want to be able to take in what he says and receive it as opposed to be thinking. There are so many beautiful points there, Dr. Raaj. I just wanted to say that. Many of them would branch off into very valid things about the Dhanishta Nakshatra. So when you said the Agni in the heart, you think of Makara, and you get just Makara where Mars exalts. We got to remember, I want to really pay homage to Angarika here. This is where he finds his forward movement. He becomes valorous. He gets to be himself. He gets elevated. He becomes divine, really. So it's that pada, it's in Makara, that we find that Aries, Mesha, falls on the fourth house, where the heart is. And you had mentioned sleep problems. And this Agni in the heart, people often think someone's thinking too much. No, this nakshatra has tremendous willpower. We have to think of Bhishma Pratam. We have to think of that vow, the gravity of the vow of no enjoyment. Okay, this is just, I mean, if no enjoyment through women, you could say, you could really say it was just that. But if you watched what he did, he yoked himself out of patriotism for his father, really. So this nakshatra has something to do with familial love, familial loyalty, I should say, almost to a fault. Because Bhishma's vow, he crossed his limit with that vow. It was not his to take, that Bhishma is greater than I will ever be. So it is not me saying that I could do something better. My head's on the floor. I'm nothing, and I wear a garland of faults. So please, and I don't say that to be modest, I'm being honest. I am nothing. But I can see through observation, and as teaching Jyotish and sharing Jyotish, and understanding the big picture, when Bhishma took that vow, he took self-authority out of his honor. We've got to remember Angarika, out of his honor, his strength, his valor. I can protect my country. I can protect my father's desires by renouncing mine. It seems very noble, but he was the best choice to lead. He was the proper crown prince. He was the proper Yuvraj, right? He was not supposed to sacrifice that post. By doing so, they got a continuum of kings that did not deserve the throne because he deserved it. So there is this nobility here. Mars, when they say that Mars has arrogance, when we hear the word arrogant, we're often thinking of some pompousness. That's a very low form of arrogance. Arrogance is, it can be divine. It can cross a limit where you see the person and they are extraordinarily noble, but you don't know what they're being blinded with their nobility. So he was great. He was full of power. He was full of strength. He was full of valor. I mean, his name struck fear in all of the neighboring kingdoms. When he got the princesses of Kashi, they were shaking in their boots. They were shaking in their sandals. You know, they were shaking. They were horrified. I mean, this is Bhishma's death is due to that, right? That princess who could not forget that he ruined her commitment of her heart. So here we have the heart brought in again, that severing of that which is gentle, of that which is tender, of that which is geared to union for glory. So there's something about this nakshatra that becomes extraordinarily, it's got a power to it, and it has to be careful that it doesn't sever things without thinking, without force its will, because it is that strong. And when it comes to its vow, when it comes to those kinds of things. The other thing, when you said the fire of the heart, recently, those you know, I've been through a few medical things, and one of them was I was looking, you know, they were taking a CT scan of my heart, and I could see it. And I asked him, I said, is that normal? Because when I looked at it, it looked like a drummer inside the heart with a fire coming up out of its head. I mean, it actually, your heart chambers, when you see it through, anyway, I'm sure other people have seen this, but it is the drummer. It looks like these two valves come off, and they look like they're hitting, and it's rhythmical, and there's the image of flames. It looks like everything's going upward. So it really, you know, that willpower of the heart, that power that is in one's will when it's linked with a purpose and a duty, should not be underestimated in this nakshatra. You said something else very beautiful that I wanted to touch on before, Adityaji. Maybe I'll remember. It was something very significant, Dr. Paiji, about this nakshatra.
That's great. But we also have something special is happening. I don't know what is this. Kapil, is he there? He's just joined, but I can just see his. Are you there? We are recording, Kapil.
It looks like a red screen.
Oh, okay. Probably we don't know. That's, okay, carry on, Evji. Yeah, this was some beautiful things that you have been sharing with us.
Seems like he has the camera on the other direction,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Switch the
no
camera.
worries. I think he'll come on
Fine,
the camera. Okay.
So the mother, I don't want to forget that point. I just remembered something significant with the mother. Something very significant with the mother, either a very, very powerful bond with the mother or a harmed bond. You've got to remember that this nakshatra, any nakshatra can grow any kind of tree depending on the graha sitting in it. And if it's just lagna, let's say, we have to look at what's affecting lagna and all that. But something very significant, maybe otherworldly special about the mother. And the other thing I want to say is this nakshatra, and for those of you who have experiences with these kinds of things, and those of you who believe it or don't believe it, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying it because it is a part of Vedic culture, previous lives, right? This nakshatra, more than any nakshatra, I would say, was one of the key ones. When I see it very prominent, I suspect that the person may be a spirit, or the person may be brought into a human birth against their will. So you will see many special children that were born through boons from temples and from having a special mother. Their mother did some kind of ritual and they got that child. And that child may not have wanted to be born. So there is that element of angst. Once again, Makara and Kumbha are shunny. So they're not.
Ganga and Bhishma you're trying to put,
That's exactly it.
Exactly.
That's exactly it, Adityaji. So you will see people that you'll hear these stories. Now look at their chart. There's something either Atmakarka or, something very prominent, just sitting there peacefully, well, not so peacefully in Dhanishta, being that mark. The Lagna, Atmakarka, these kind of things where it's really prominent. There's a few nakshatras that have that, and it does go back to their story. So Bhishma is, of course, the one that got trapped in the human body. The last point, now I remember, Vishnu Sahasranamam. When you said name and fame, glory, wealth, banks, all those things, the merit in life comes through our devotion. Really through some kind of purity, some kind of purification. Someone born with a blindfold, they may just become rich and not know it and think they just deserve it. But their timer runs out and then they wonder why they're suffering. So it's always this play, right? Abundance, increase and decrease. That's why moon is so important for a human being, is that nothing is status quo for a human being. Everything is increase and decrease. You're never going to be flat. So all this fluctuation in karma pala, you first see through moon and the condition of moon. I mean, this is my Vimshottari Dasha as well. Vimshottari Dasha really is very important, and moon is really very important. So, but the Vishnu Sahasranama, when you said Bhishma's laying there, right? Yudhishthira comes to him. So we have that story in Makara too, which I've often spoken about, which it goes through Uttarashada, and it's the whole Mahabharata, or at least the divinity of it, Vishnu hearing the prayer in Shravana, or the listener to the recital of the mantras. And you have Dhanishta here, which is saying the names of Vishnu, which give glory. Anytime we hear our name said, when we hear our name said and it's spoken about in some good way, this is that desire of Shravana, right? But the actual fame comes through Dhanishta, the point of, you mentioned the directions. It's not hard to figure out. This nakshatra is definitely success. It is definitely fame, and it is definitely most of the things that human beings are looking for. But it doesn't mean that it's always the path of dharma. And that's the part I wanted to emphasize, because it is a very glorious nakshatra. But in a way, Bhishma, look what he had to serve. Look who he had to serve. He was not happy about having to serve, serve in the way that he did. He was yoked into the world, is what I'm trying to say. He's very much yoked in. He was not allowed to go be on the side with Krishna, where he wanted to be with the Pandavas. He had to swallow that due to the vow and serve, in a way, the very saturated energy of the world that Duryodhana was perpetuating. It's not good or bad, it just is. That's exactly what it is. But when you say all the direction, the gods of the direction, what you're looking at, think of where Mars gets his Digbala. And think about who gives you direction in life. It's two grahas mainly. You got Mercury, he's really your decision maker in the end. He's the one that's going to deal with all the details and all that. But Mars gives that kind of like that kind of like valor or courage, or almost in some cases arrogance, that I'm going to do this no matter if it's good or bad, because I'm just supposed to do it. So there is this directional strength behind Mars always. He's always going to push us in the direction of wherever he's sitting. In some way, it might be a more quiet way for some people, and it might be very loud for others. But when you speak about the directional deities and all of them controlling a portion of wealth, it's very simple to connect all these dots, because you also have, any direction you move has a consequence. And then you have Mars ruling debt. There's so many pujas for Mars and debt. What else are there so many pujas for Mars?
So also what I've seen is a lot of pujas for Mars, even to get rid of debt, that you have. Those debt
and Roga.
Diseases.
What boon did Bhishma have? Wishful death?
Yes, wishful death.
That boon is very interesting, because Mars is the karaka of untimely death. Akala Mrityu. He's the lord of Akala Mrityu. He's also the lord of injury in battle, getting torn apart, all those violent actions that happen in battle, surgery, all those things. He's also Roga Karaka, as I think we mentioned in Shravana. I mentioned that the Sampat Nakshatra to Mars, where Mars is exalted, is Shatabhashaka. So there is a very medical aspect to Mars. Mars is very physical. The other thing about this nakshatra is it seeks that kind of physical proof. It likes physical evidence. It likes physical proof, and it likes to know that something is. It's not blind faith. It's not a blind faith nakshatra. Mars is not. He's very mechanical. He's very logical, and he's a surgeon. So he goes about everything in that way. He's
a lot of doctors, correct? In Dhanishta.
Is a what?
Lot of doctors you have seen in Dhanishta.
So one thing I told you guys years back is I've noticed the master pulse readers. The master pulse readers, a lot of them will have Dhanishta. And just the heartbeat. It's so simple. Shiva's drum, the minute we take breath in life. What is enforced on us the minute we are living is that we will die. Our mortality. And if you look at Saturn and Mars with this Vimshottari lordship, it's a Yama yoga. Saturn and Mars together is Yama. So the two nakshatras, Anuradha and Dhanishta, have a very interesting connection to the heart. And the timer, this is how long you've got. That's it. Flame is out. So there's this kind of urgency in a way behind both of those nakshatras to make things very concrete, to secure things, to apply one's will to things, because I think they're very in touch with the futility of everything, the emptiness of everything, and that everything will end. So there is an essence of that in Dhanishta. You look at I don't want to talk about any famous people that are living. I will mention that President Obama has a Dhanishta Lagna. You hear his measured speech. That is another very common thing with Dhanishta, is there's a specific kind of speech, because Shani ends up ruling the second house, and Shani is the one, or it could be Pisces if it's more emotional, but anyway, Dhanishta itself by itself will have a certain speech. So the people who have passed away with Dhanishta, you have like Marilyn Monroe. And if you notice, her speech was very specific. It's very feminine, you know, but it was very specific. If you hear Obama talk, he's very specific. It's not out of control speech, I would say. There's people that have that quality. It's very sculptured in a way. So there's something about Dhanishta that has this dignity about it, or at least tries to have that dignity about it. And it's the posture of Mars that you're really seeing. Mars really values honor. He's really valorous. We really need him. He's the kind of Agni that allows us to have the confidence to move in a direction that has a risk. You know, risk. There's a very important point there, because without that, we don't take risks. And sometimes it can be out of control. I mean, it is a very, in a way, tamasic nakshatra. So there's an element of that that comes on with Shani and Mars anyway. But
and one more thing, Peepchi, so beautiful points. I just wanted to add something with Dhanishta. You know, when you've been talking about Bhishma, I want to point out that Bhishma has been, there's been a lot of curses that Bhishma has come because of his vow that he has taken. An oath he took to be celibate. And ever since he has taken that oath, he went on to many battlefields. He won many battles, and in exchange, he was also gifted the king gifted their daughters away. For example, you talked about Kashi. The kingdom of Kashi gave Ambika and Ambalika. Okay, they became the princes or the queens of Vichitravirya. Unfortunately,
out of fear, Dr. Paiji, I just want to say that just quickly. Yeah. It's mentioned that they were afraid. I just want to say that they did it in a way because they were motivated by fear.
Fear, exactly.
Yeah.
It was fear. Now, who creates fear? Mars creates this fear. Okay, now let me also point out that Mars not only creates fear, he wins battles, but he also wants to become celibate, because not many people know Mars also represents celibacy to a great extent. That's the higher, harmonic of a Mars. Now, because of which there was a period when, after Vichitravirya passed away, unfortunately, the mother, the royal mother, who was Satyavati, who was the mother of, who was also the foster mother of Bhishma, because he got Satyavati to be married to his own father, King Shantanu. She said, can you actually procreate for the kingdom to take it forward? But he was adamant that, saying, I stand by my oath, because of which Satyavati had to call Rishi Vedavyas to come and to perform Niyoga. Niyoga means impregnating the princess. Niyoga doesn't mean, it's not a sexual act like many people think. There are certain rules that can be only 3 people you can, copulate with. And there is usually a curtain in between the princess, and there has to be no lust involved in that sort of impregnation. It's called Niyoga. So he refused for Niyoga. So Vedavyas Rishi had to be compelled, even though he came back from his prayers, Satyavati, because she's the mother of Vedavyas, because of the union of Parashar Rishi and Satyavati, Vedavyas was born. So she compelled Vedavyas to go through Niyoga to have children. And if you see for two generations, even after Pandu and Dhritarashtra were born, their children cannot be done without with the proper means. They also had to resort to Niyoga. Kunti went to Niyoga, and through which she had all the children. Niyoga with Surya gave her Karna. Niyoga with Dharma Devata gave her Yudhishthir. Niyoga with Indra gave her Arjuna. Niyoga with Vayu gave her Bhima. Niyoga with the Ashwini Kumaras gave her Nakula and Sahadeva. There was no natural birth after, because of which I have seen many times with Dhanishta Nakshatra. Men usually woo women, but then they become hated by women because of a nature where they say, no, I don't want to do anything, I just want to that, because of which women get attracted to men who are Dhanishta, very strong, just like Bhishma. The same thing he did with Gandhar. Gandhari was also one and brought because of the fear, but he said, you have to now marry my blind Dhritarashtra. So
The Shakuni.
the sharp
Shakuni is now in the picture because of that.
Exactly.
Who, in his horrible story. I mean, this is what these vows, this is it's a beautiful point too, what you're making about the sensuality or the sexuality, because it doesn't mean because this is Bhishma, the person's going to want to be celibate. I've seen a lot of promiscuous people with this nakshatra. Once again, this is not good or bad. It just is. Right? So we're not talking bad about promiscuity. It just is. I'm just making a statement. So you will see this in some cases that the person has had more partners than they would have liked to have.
Exactly.
Some way it does impact them.
True.
Some way it's going to impact them. And then what you were saying about the men, this is once again, it is like Mars trying to handle Venus in a way. There is that element of it that's, I'm sure if you get other things in the chart, like if the person has a strong Venusian or I would say lunar influence, because moon is the romantic. Everyone thinks Venus is the romantic, right? But it's actually moon that they say in Sanskrit is full of lust. And he is the romantic one. He's the charmer. He's the vain one, actually. I mean, he crosses his limits of vanity and Ganapati curses him. Right? It's not because he was vain at all. Ganapati, none of these gods, no one cares that he had vanity. It was when it crossed its limit. This is the big lesson here. It's not the sin, it's the excess of crossing a limit. It's the will crossing some point that starts encroaching in other people's boundary. Once it starts affecting all, then it becomes a matter that Vishnu has to handle. Lord Vishnu has to handle these people who make such big vows that it affects other people. Or they have some personality trait that's just out of control. So if someone has a lot of moon, or they have moon Venus, then it can counteract some of this Dhanishta quality that you're describing in men, because then the moon will take on some of he's the romantic one, and Venus will take on the enjoyment part. Venus really likes to have enjoyment. So if they're together, then it's it's a combination. It's a combination for that. But so but you will see with Dhanishta in general is this kind of interesting stories around.
There could be some contrast, definitely. So, Evji, we will definitely have more, but we have the other panelists as well. Kapil has joined in.
Let's talk to Kapil.
So let's talk to Kapil and see what is his.
So I just came back from shooting all day.
I knew that. I mentioned that.
I'm half asleep, and I'm just like, I saw your link, so I just clicked and joined.
Right.
But I mean, I'm just gonna quickly say I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen like with Dhanishta, musicians, boxers, fighters. I have even interestingly well, I don't know if I should say this. I think it could be a little too negative. I'll skip this part. Maybe I'll tell you guys in private. But I mean, I've seen certain negative parts, but definitely with Dhanishta, I see people who get like, let's say, a relationship reading from me, marriage reading from me, and then they say, can you tell me if I should even marry? Should I even be in a relationship? I don't know. And they're like 35, 36, and I can see like a Dharakarka would be in Dhanishta. Venus would be in Dhanishta. Seventh Lord would be in Dhanishta. Mars, let's say, was sitting in Navamsha in the 7th house in Dhanishta. And I can see that they want to take this oath of celibacy. They're dying to take it, but they're just wanting this confirmation from me. That's one of the unique things I've seen with men and women both. Because I'm like, oh, that's Bhishma Pitama. He does not want to be in a relationship. He wants to be away from the bondage of it. Maybe they want to have lots of sex on their private life. Fine. But the commitment part, they're always questioning that.
That's absolutely right. That's what I was saying, Kapil. You know, I think they would, not that they want celibacy, they could be very active sexually as well. But that's what Eve G was trying to put it, you know, very diplomatically, saying that not about promiscuity, it's not about that, but commitment levels. They don't want
They have this,
I think that's
they're
exactly
scared of this thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
LG. But what it might be too, guys, is you want to think of Mars and what he thinks is important. What does Mars think is important? Do you think he values the 7th house much? Does he value the things of Venus very much? He will empower Venus. Like if you get a Mars-Venus conjunction, that is a very passionate conjunction because both of those grahas are very passionate in their own way. So that kind of changes the nature of both Mars and Venus. But just Mars by himself, he likes glory. He wants a glorious death. He wants to die for a reason, for a purpose. And a lot of times that purpose is not another person through romance. Unless it's like absolutely Laila Majnun, but you're going to get that more in Anuradha. So that's more Anuradha, is the tragic love. But when you get Dhanishta, you can also get tragic love, believe it or not. You can get that. But what will happen is there's something in the person that thinks there's some purpose in the empire that they're building. Even if they work at a grocery store, it's not that, it's just something, they're going to give some power to the work they have to do. It's their work. Remember every Rashi, guys. This is so important. It's so critical. Because where Mars exalts, we get a Makara Lagna. What are the houses of Venus? Because that's what the person's going to love. Where in any Lagna, wherever Venus falls, the person's going to love that. You get Venus's Mula Trikona in the 10th. And that for Makara is what they want. That is what they love. Now, the moon rules a 7th. Which becomes difficult because moon is so romantic and so lusty. Moon is lusty. He's a sattva graha, so it doesn't mean always, but moon is lusty. You know, I mean, it's just said all over the text. It's not me making that up. So the natural lord of the 7th being the moon is quite interesting because you get this very purposeful person that is in the end in love with achievement of some sort, even if it's spiritual achievement. So these people, Kapilji, coming to you with their relationship things, you know, and saying that I just want a purpose to be, that celibacy is their ambition. It's truly, it's like Bhishma, he was married to that vow more than he was truly married to protecting the kingdom. If you analyze what the effect was of him taking that vow, it was not protecting the kingdom, it destroyed the kingdom. There's a saying in psychology to not listen to anyone's words, but look at the outcome of their actions. And that is what they were trying to do in the first place, even if they didn't know it. So don't listen. This is a major Mars thing too. No words, just action. Now, if you look at the outcome of a person's actions, the outcome of their decisions, and you look at Bhishma, he is the one, he fought to protect it, but the whole thing came unraveled. So it's a commitment to this vow, this bigger picture, and they are in love with it. They're in love with the 10th house somehow. And you just have to figure out how. How is that working? Because let's say it's in a woman, or a woman is, let's say she's just at home with her children, and you don't think she has a lot of ambition. Talk to her, because it might not be career. It might not be career. It might, but that purposefulness of Makara, because of Mars ruling the 4th, so Makara has Mars sitting in the heart, right? Purposeful. And it can be dangerous too. And Venus sitting in the actions, in the career. So they're in love with something to do with that. And Dhanishta, I feel, takes it to the height because that is where Mars exalts. So,
but what about from Aquarius Lagna?
Yeah, and that's different because that's not where Mars exalts. So from an Aquarius Lagna, you're actually moving into something brilliant that Dr. Paiji shared earlier about the different, Dhanishta becomes very different in Aquarius. And anyone that's doing enough horoscopes will see that. And you see enough Kunlis, you'll see that the Aquarius portion of Dhanishta becomes very different than the Makara portion. And you definitely see the stamp of Mars strongly on the Makara portion. And it's interesting because those Navamshas, that's Leo, and that's Simha and Kanya, those two padas, right? And the Leo is deathly. It's an Ashamamsha pada. So it's really the Makara portion is actually kind of dangerous, that Dhanishta. And I'm not trying to scare people, but I'm saying that it's people that get heart attacks at work. You know, this nakshatra, you can definitely die from a broken heart. You can have you can push yourself too much and get a heart attack. All those things are very possible through this nakshatra because so much of the consciousness is seated in this timer that we have. Dhanishta is a timer. It's counting your mortality. And what I was sharing earlier with these gentlemen is, you know, it's in the Vimshottari, it's a Yama Yoga, Mars and Saturn. It's the influence of Yama. Even if you don't take the Vimshottari Lord, even if you just say Saturn Rashi, Mars exalted in it, you know, that combo is it's a Yama Yoga. So there's some awareness of mortality here too, and that's why you're also seeing these people come to you saying, I want to be celibate, or I want some bigger purpose. I want my life to mean something. I don't want to die. I know this timer is going. They might not be consciously thinking this, but their action, once again, their words and their actions are another thing. And if you see what a Dhanishta person is doing, they're engineering towards a glorious death. And
so what does an Aquarius side of Dhanishta really represents compared to the Makara?
Well, Aquarius, we're getting into the territory of, we're getting into a more fixed territory of security. All the fixed Rashis in some way. If you look at the lordships, they drastically change, right? Venus becomes more internalized with Aquarius than it is with Makara. It becomes more internalized. And you have now Mars, you have them changing places. The lordship is now changing places. But not only that, you have Mars and Ketu ruling the 10th house. So Aquarius becomes a little more scientific, to be honest. I like what Dr. Paiji said in the beginning about banks and all of that with Dhanishta. Very commonly, it is the Capricorn side because you have Venus on the 10th house. When you change it and it becomes Mars and Ketu ruling the 10th, you get a very different person. You would think more ambitious, but not, because once again, Venus gives the love. So you get more introverted people, to be honest with that. They will be actors, they'll be famous, they'll still get the benefits of Dhanishta. You'll see a lot of them. Marilyn Monroe is a perfect example of the Aquarius side, because she was out there, she was shining, she had all of the benevolent merit of Dhanishta. Everything that they say, her name is now immortalized. But she was a classic introvert. The Capricorn side is too, but the Aquarius side is tormented by it. So she was on so many medications. You know, they didn't know how to keep her functioning at one point. Medications to wake up, medications to go to sleep. A deeper insecurity. There's a deeper insecurity with Kumbha sometimes, and if it's not insecure, then it's very skeptical of this world. It's almost like it becomes a little bit more solidified in the skepticism of Shani. And so therefore it makes very good scientists. It makes very good musicians. I've seen a lot of recording engineers with it. And it makes a very, because Mars and Ketu becomes kind of technical on the 10th there. I know personally about 4 scientists offhand that have the Aquarius Lugna. The Aquarius Lugna side. So it's hard, because you know my belief, Kapilji, about, it's not even a belief, but the evidence points towards needing to read the horoscope like a portrait. And so isolating like just Aquarius or Capricorn, it's hard because you don't know the rest of the chart. The person could be exhibiting some of the signs of Capricorn because they have a lot of Prithvi Rashis. Like they might have a lot of Virgo with it. And then that Virgo is going to be earthy, and it's going to encourage more earth out of that Kumbha Rashi. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to have qualities of that Kumbha. Kumbha is really, in some ways, it's a great void. And it's not to scare people or say anything negative about it, but it's the investigation into the void. It's the journey into the void. You've got Shadavashaka in the heart of it. Space. I mean, you have that ring or the circle of the universe, the circle of emptiness, which all matter is filled with emptiness. This is an empty world, and that reality hits you in Kumbha much harder than it hits you in Makara. It's starting to hit the person in Makara. You will hear Makara people say things like this. But when it gets into Kumbha, it's almost a silent acknowledgement that this whole world is empty, because you're moving towards Nina, you're moving towards Pisces, which is the liberation, which is the infinite ocean of liberation. And you're facing that abyss. So there's that deep inclination towards solitude and things like that, or just needing alone time, you know. You'll hear a lot of Kumbha Rashi people, they just need their alone time. And once it gets into Shadavashaka, then the person might be medicating themselves, right? Because they don't like this reality. Shani has a conflict of interest with, you know, inviting Shani to dinner is like inviting reality to dinner. And so no one wants that. No one wants Shani to sit at their dinner table. I mean, most people, maybe some of us, but this is what Kumbha is feeling in a way. Kumbha is starting to feel that, and he's got that, mark my words with this, guys, everyone who's a student, I humbly say this, I'm happy to be wrong. If anyone wants to start looking at the Lugnas and then looking at the 10th house, just look at the Lugna, look at the 10th and the 4th house. I mean, 7th is very important too, but just look at the Kendras and you know everything about that Lugna. So when you get Scorpio on the 10th, that is going to be your activity in the world somehow, and it's going to be your response to the world. And, you know, you've got Venus pulling you towards the intimacy of internalizing, because the 4th house is concealed, is completely hidden. It doesn't want to be, the 4th house does not want to be seen. That's when we just want to be in our home and be ourselves. We don't want to see the public. We don't want to, that's our most intimate time. No one needs to follow us into the 4th house. That's our deep sleep as well. So I think when you get Venus there, there's a passion towards the mystery. There's a passion towards the mystery, and there's a passion towards sometimes just being left alone. And when you get this 10th house ruled by Scorpio, which is also a very interesting Rashi, you have to think.
Yeah, but you know what Kapil also, what I want to say to Evji is, look how I would look at Dhanishta on Capricorn as well as Dhanishta on Aquarius side. Now just look at Dhanishta on Capricorn side. Okay, it's more connected to Hari. Hari means Vishnu's energy is more prominent with the first 2 padas. The second 2 padas, the 3rd pada and the 4th pada, are more stronger with Shiva's element, and both of them will have some issues related to their mother for sure. Dhanishta as such will have some association with mother. Either just look at for a Capricorn ascendant with Dhanishta, you see Mars comes in the 4th. I mean, the Mars is the Mula Trikona of the 4th house. Is that correct? Mars becomes.
Well, yes, but Dr. Paiji, Mars is also in Gemini, a Karaka of the mother. Yeah. So very often what you will see is the Makara side will have a very powerful, intimate relationship with the mother. Protective bond with the mother. They'll protect the mother. Yeah.
And because of also what you see is the 11th house. Mars also rules the 11th house. Mars and Ketu. So that comes in the Mula Trikona becomes that. But 5th house, Mula Trikona of Moon. 7th Lord's Mula Trikona in the 5th house. So something related to the children will also be, important, or marriage will be something to do with. Marital issues might be there. Why? Because of, Moon exaltation and Mula Trikona in the 5th house. What is 5th house? Romanticism, love affairs. So, and what we said, Moon is sensual, wants to have multiple partners. But when we come to the Aquarius side, you see Moon's is the 6th house lord. And it comes to the 4th house, where it becomes a small trikona as well as its exaltation point. So what does it signify? The 6th house, Lord in the 4th house. So some strifes can be there when it comes into with the mother.
Oh, and also romance, as you're saying, because it's a very different Aquarius Lagna, right? Because you have Simha Rashi falling on the 7th.
Exactly. And you see the 5th house Lord becomes, the Mula Trikona becomes in the 8th house. For Aquarius side of things, the 5th house is Mercury, Gemini, and that goes to the 8th house for Aquarius Lagna.
And it's ruled by Rahu. Just hear me out, guys. So it's unique with Aquarius Lagna because you got Rahu ruling the 1st.
Exactly.
But also the 8th.
Yeah.
He still rules Virgo.
True.
I'm very serious about that. There's a lot of evidence to support that. I don't want to go into now. But so Aquarius Lagna is putting the 1st and 8th Lord as one. Just like in an Aries Lagna.
Yeah.
So it is fascinating that way because there is that similar rulership, but this time it becomes Rahu.
Okay, here is one more point that I can give you all. Think about it. This is a tip that I've given. It is part of the Pai Paddhati. Dhanishta Nakshatra, 1st and the 2nd pada. In the Rashi pada, they are number 8 and number 9. Remember that. So 8, anybody who has Dhanishta Nakshatra 1st pada as their ascendant, they will have some transformation going on all throughout their life because it is the 8th Rashi pada. Also, it is Ashtamamsha Pada. Ashtamamsha means any planet which falls in the first Pada of Dhanishta will go to the 8th house in the Navamsha. It will go to Leo. Okay. Then the second Pada of Dhanishta is associated with 9. So it's Dharma. So that's where exaltation of Mars is happening. That's where they will protect their dharma or their faith like a warrior, a spiritual warrior. Dhanishta Nakshatra second Pada. This is something that, so when you go to the third Pada, it becomes Rashi Pada 1 and fourth Pada becomes Rashi Pada 2. So remember that the house lordship becomes very important. This is a key tip I'm giving. I think Kapil would have got it, and I know everybody else understands.
Oh, there's another key thing that I've actually now noticed.
Yeah.
With Dhanishta, and this is something Togi and I have discussed over and over again. So one thing you will see with Dhanishta is also ability to play like psychological warfare. Why? What is opposite to Dhanishta in the Capricorn side?
Ashlesha.
Ashlesha. So naturally they have this mystical side to them, but also they have this ability that they can make someone do something without them even wanting to do, because the way they will kind of like control through their words and control through their conversation. So that's something you will see, because opposite nakshatra, me and Togi were always like, oh my God, opposite nakshatra is working. Opposite nakshatra. Togi's like, we should just give a reading of opposite nakshatras. That's it. So with that, we have seen that play out. And this is why Dhanishta is also connected to medicine, because opposite is Ashlesha, chemicals, taking up poisons, herbs. You know, I actually see a lot of Dhanishta people who are into yon living, essential oils. Essential oils, because, and then I'm like, why essential oils? Why? And boom, right when you all look at the opposite, okay, it's Ashlesha. Opposite is working even much stronger sometimes with people, actually all the time, than just looking at the nakshatra itself.
Kapilji, there's a principle in Jaimini that's interesting what you're saying, because it's both the Lagna and the 7th house are sat, which means they're true.
Mm-hmm.
So you just think about that. That's why the Aruda can never fall there, because it's true. It can't. The Aruda can never fall in truth. So that gives a lot of credit to opposite. It gives a lot of credit to the.
We were talking about sleepless, correct?
Yeah.
Ashlesha and all you were talking.
Exactly.
The fire in the heart with Dhanishta, right? And then Ashlesha is Lakshmana.
That's what I had that point written. I was going to say, but now the point of opposite came, Kapil.
Well, Jaimini also says, guys, that whether the planet is a Nicha or Ucha, there's a sutra. You just have to read it. Whether it's Nicha or Ucha, it becomes very powerful.
True.
So any graha that now it becomes powerful in a different way, and I think therefore the labels of Nicha and Ucha, but any graha that's Nicha or Ucha becomes very powerful. So there's a relationship between Mars in both. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Look at all these famous athletes with so-called Nicha or debilitated Mars. Why would Mars be weak? Michael Jordan's the epitome.
Yeah.
And he's good. And so many Olympic athletes have this. It's usually in the Ashlesha, or it's usually debilitated. It's usually not Capricorn. You don't see many athletes with Mars in Capricorn. So it gives a lot of power to this where we're married, right? So the 1st and the 7th almost become one, to the point where there's some techniques that you can't even use without considering whether there's a stronger graha in the 7th or the 1st. So if you have a stronger graha in the 7th, you need to consider possibly that the 7th house is where you should read the chart from. It's very tricky. You don't,
because that's why Evji and all of you, in Sanskrit there is a word called as Sama Saptak. Sama means equal or the same. Sama Saptak means usually in marriage astrology, in the southern part of India, when if the bridegroom's moon is looking from the seventh house to the, the bride's plot, then they say it is Sama Saptak, which means the moons are matching or they're looking at each other. They're called as Sama Saptak. That's a very powerful combination to have each other's moon looking at each other. I mean, the bride and the bridegroom. So this word Sama means equal, Saptak means aspects equally. So that's why the whole concept of this seventh house nakshatra, I think, works wonderfully, and that is a trick that people are missing out on. And I use that very effectively in my readings for so many years.
See, that becomes important when Venus is opposite to our nakshatra Dhanishta, either in Ashlesha or in Magha. I can really say that I have that combination. I know what it is. Mars in Magha or Venus in Magha and Venus is Ashlesha, then it will be having some qualities of Dhanishta.
Definitely. Okay, so Kapil, do you want to share some more or?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's go with Aditya because he's been waiting.
No, fine. I have kept my rice, no problem. I'm handling my rice pot there.
Okay, you got your rice pot.
But I think that's a nice point. I think one point was opposite of Dhanishta because we were talking about sleepless and all, and you mentioned about sleepless things even in Ashlesha video. We talked about how sleepless and insomnia is connected with the Ashlesha Nakshatra, and opposite of Ashlesha is Dhanishta. So that one point is already mentioned. Another point which we said was Bhishma Pitama was killed by Shikandi, who was a transgender. If you put Dhanishta of Aquarius in the Lagna, what comes in the 8th house? In the 8th house, you will have Mercury sign.
Correct.
Virgo, yeah, that's right.
Virgo.
Transgender, Mercury is what? Neither male nor female.
Yeah.
So that was another point again. How it is connected. Anyway, should I start?
Yeah, we can go ahead. Did Kapil drop off?
Yeah, I guess he.
Okay. Yeah, I think it should be quite.
I guess in between of this video.
Yeah.
With the video.
Guys, excuse me, but the reason I spoke so much is that I have a very, very early flight. And so.
But you have to give me permission, Dr. Pai, to share the screen. I don't have the permission.
Okay, I'll make you the host. Okay, I made you the host now.
Okay. So without making the host, you cannot share the screen, is it?
I do not know how to do that. I'm challenged with the technology.
We are all challenged with some technology. Okay, fine. I think my slides are visible, I guess. Dhanishta, the star of symphony.
I think you have to cancel that. I can see the window that is coming, the participants.
Oh,
I can see his. Not many bright stars. Sattvic.
Yeah, I'm seeing his presentation too. Yeah.
okay.
Oh, it's on my side. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. I had the window open.
So when you go to this part of the sky, I think when you generally observe beyond Scorpio, especially in Sagittarius and Aquarius and Capricorn, that those region of the sky is very, very, very few bright stars, not many bright stars. And if you see the first four rashis from Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer are very well active star forming star region. Then comes from Leo to Scorpio, little bit dull. They are all tamasic nakshatras, and then sattvic rashis are basically from Sagittarius to Pisces. So there are very less bright stars in this region, and Delphinus, which is the Dhanishta, occupies a very, what you can say, a sky where it's not much intense. And this is a constellation of course. All these pictures I have taken from Wikipedia, and so that took really long time for doing all those. But so don't worry about the copyright. It's from Wikipedia, and I think it's fine. All the pictures and pictures which I didn't get, I just took it off. So okay, so all copyright images, no copyright image, copyright-free images. Anyway, so this is a constellation which Delphinus looks like, and you can clearly see the stars here. Now there are like some few bright stars. 1, 2, alpha is the brightest, then beta, gamma, delta, 4 brightest, and there is one bright here very close to beta, and then there is epsilon, which is the handle. Okay, so you may say, oh, there are like 5 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 stars forming this square, 1 star forming here, 5, and this is the 6 stars. So 6 stars. But if you really go, and scientists have discovered that this star beta itself is made up of 2 stars. This star gamma itself is made up of 2 stars. So they are double stars. So these are double stars. And then this one, Zeta is also having one more object, but it is not a star. It's called as brown dwarf. It is neither a star, neither a planet. So I don't know. We cannot call that as a star. But anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars here, then 6 stars here, and beta and gamma have 2 stars. So they have 6 main stars and 2 faint stars is basically total 8 stars. And it's surprising that we are connecting Ashtavasus with this Nakshatra. So 8 stars in this constellation, and the concept of Ashtavasus, how uniquely it fits into both. So that's what I wanted to just tell you about the number of stars in this and the constellation. Coming to Sun transit date, Dhanishta, as we said, it lies half part in Capricorn, 2 padas in Capricorn, 2 padas in Aquarius. So 23 degree 20 minutes Capricorn to Aquarius 6 degree 14 minutes. So Sun transits the Dhanishta Nakshatra every year from 7th February to 20th of February every year. Around that time, 7th to 20th, okay? That is the time when Sun is going through Dhanishta Nakshatra. Yogatara is at Alpha Delphinus, of course, Alpha is the brightest star, and that exactly falls at 23 degree 32 minutes. So Yogatara of Dhanishta falls after a long, long time. We saw this Mula Yogatara falling in Jyeshtha, Purvashara Yogatara falling in Mula, Uttarashara Yogatara falling. All this, after this now on, we have each Yogatara in their respective region. Okay, it's barely to the beginning of Dhanishta, 23 degree 32 minutes. And Capricorn. So it's exactly in the first pada of, so Yogatara of Dhanishta is in the first pada of Dhanishta Nakshatra. So first pada of Dhanishta Nakshatra becomes important. The second pada, as you said, Mars exalts. So that pada also really becomes important. So those 2 padas are really something very significant. And here it shows, and we talked about this, Dhanishta Nakshatra, the Rashi is basically Saturn, Rashi Lord, because the first 2 padas are in Capricorn. So the Rashi Lord is Saturn. The next 2 padas is in Aquarius, so Saturn, as well as you can say Rahu, but we'll take Saturn because this falls in Aquarius, 3rd and 4th pada. Nakshatra Lord is Mars for all the padas. Navamsha, also we did talk. Generally, we don't talk about Navamsha and all, but in our chat today, I think he or Dr. Pai mentioned about different Navamshas too. The Navamsha, first pada of Navamsha has got Leo, so Sun becomes the Lord. Second pada Navamsha is Virgo, Mercury becomes the Lord. Third pada is Venus. 4th pada is Mars. So really, I think I knew I was putting my rice, but someone was saying about the 4th pada of Dhanishta. It's where you have Saturn, Mars, and Mars. Very logical, very, very technical, very logical, very scientific aspects. Definitely you will see it there. Lot of authority, lot of governance, lot of political administration management you will see in the first pada, because there is Saturn, Mars, and Sun energy there. Okay. What is Saturn? Saturn is discipline. Saturn is long-term, goal-oriented, patience and all those. And what is Mars? Commander in general, dynamic, fierce, strong, vigor, all that qualities of Mars. So that's what the Dhanishta Nakshatra is. Depending on pada, the flavor changes. Okay. Sun, Mercury, of course, Venus and Mars. And depending on different padas, they will have different energies. So fourth pada very, very strongly scientific, very technical, very, because you see fourth pada is Libra, you have Chitra Nakshatra there. It can be very technical and all those things will be easily seen. Similarly, first pada. Okay. So right now, Dr. Pai, will you continue the session for 2 minutes, and I just have to take out the water from my rice. Otherwise, it will not go. It will just take me 2 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to talk about Aditya. Can you show that a slide with the constellation slide, please? The Wikipedia thing. Yeah. Go ahead, Aditya. I just want to talk here. Here is very interesting that if you look at the Delphinus constellation, I mean, Delphinus literally translates as dolphin, right? That's a very interesting kind of thing. So you can see that dolphin direct connection here. And what is very interesting is that look at the other constellations around Delphinus. Like you can see Pegasus, which is the horse, the famous horse constellation. You have the Equus, which definitely means horse, if I'm not mistaken. You have like Aquila, which is also this eagle, and Sagitta is also very interesting. You know, so Sagitta. I mean, why would you have Sagittarius, which is a whole Sagittarius thing, then you have another Sagitta as a constellation coming up here also. So that's a very interesting kind of thing to think about the dharmic side in general. So these natives might have something going on. I mean, you don't think, we are used to thinking in terms of 12 zodiac signs, but when you begin to expand that, just look at what's happening at the boundaries. There's this interesting kind of theme that's seen. Because I was paying attention to the omen of what Eve G was saying about having to take an early flight. So I was wondering what was going on here. But you can see this like Pegasus and Equus kind of thing going on. You know, you can see Pegasus definitely travel, horse, Equus definitely kind of horse, Equine definitely translates a horse. So definitely I would even say that they do have some karma with travel in general. Either they like to travel, they have so much energy that they have to travel, or you know, something along those lines is something I wanted to say. And then what is also very fascinating is that Delphinus is also very close to Aquila, which is definitely the Garuda and so forth. So it makes a lot of sense as to why Bhishma at the moment of his death literally had to, chant the great Vishnu Sahasranama, which, you know, before, so that he himself could take a Garuda, you know. That's an interesting kind of a thing. So he could at least attain to Vishnu or walk the path of Vishnu at the moment of his death and before he died, at least. So that was a very interesting kind of thing. And yeah, the what Aditya's observation also was very interesting here with the double stars with beta and gamma stars of Delphinus. But what is fascinating is that Zeta is actually having a brown dwarf. So that's one question I had, Aditya. Like, so what is the brown? How is brown dwarf different from the other stars that is out there?
Brown dwarf is like it has got not enough mass to become a star. So it's neither a planet category, neither a star category. It is in between. And there are objects like that in space. Neither, because you need that much mass to start the hydrogen combustion. And if you don't have that much mass, the hydrogen combustion will not start. So we don't compare that as a star. At the same time, mass is higher than planets. So it is in between the stage of planet and star.
So it's almost like, so would it be, so you're saying that it's a brown dwarf, so it's not really a star, but it's like it's a star, but not having enough planets around it.
It's a failed star. It has got not enough mass to become a star, to start that ignition, hydrogen burning inside it.
Right. So it's very interesting that you have amongst the Ashtavasus one Bhishma Pitama who literally was like, you know, not the full-on star, who couldn't join the family, right? In that way. So it's like, so that's very interesting observation. I just want to highlight that, you know, you went over it, but I just want to highlight that.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, I'm probably going to have to, I'm gonna have to go. It's almost 11 p.m. my time, and I will listen to the rest of the video. I was so looking forward to hearing what everyone had to say. I just wanted to share on that about Bhishma once again. I wanted to share just something on the Brihat Samhita, where it mentions that acts of, you know how it goes through each nakshatra in which actions are to be taken. It's interesting here because under Dhanishta or Shravishta, which it is called in Brihat Samhita, it says that acts of character are carried out. It also says that Dhanishta is the back of the nakshatra Purush. So when you think, when someone says, watch your posture, you know, your posture, your confidence, and once again, or your, this is all, you know, think about that personality of Bhishma. I mean, it's very prevalent in this nakshatra, even to the point where the activities that we choose to do under it are actions that require proper posturing of character. And it literally rules the back. I mean, the back is what allows us to have the spine erect and sit up straight like a yogi. And I believe Dr. Paiji was speaking earlier about antelopes and deer. And, you know, Lord Vayu is on an antelope. And so control of prana, control of that prana comes through the deer or the antelope. That's why you see Lord Shiva with it. It can be either a symbol of Soma or Vayu. And you have to determine whether it's an antelope or a deer. And so if it's a deer, it's Soma. If it's an antelope, it's Vayu. And that's control of prana. So this nakshatra, there is a posturing of control of life force, which is shown in the back. So I'd be curious, you guys, just before I have to go, if anyone has seen back problems with Dhanishta. And I have seen this from time to time, and sciatica and back problems.
Interesting.
Even in Dhanishta, it says that nakshatra rules back and anus.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it does say that. It also, well, that's the Shiva part. That is the, once again, we're dealing with Shiva. Whenever we're dealing with the anus, we're dealing with Shiva. We're dealing with that which is getting rid of that which isn't needed. You know, annihilation in many ways. I mean, if it rules the colon as well, I mean, just the large intestine, this is all absorption of nutrients, but then once it's done with that, it's disposed of. So that's interesting, Aditya Ji, because that's the Muladhara is near that spot, near it, it's at the base of the tailbone, right? And then you also have it in Kriya, they show you an additional place.
That's an interesting thing, because if you in that Yukteswar's the Rashi distribution with Sun and Moon being the Leo and Cancer, you have the Capricorn and Aquarius, literally the Muladhara Chakra region. So it makes sense with regard to some back problems and that kind of a thing going on. So that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I'm sure this guy who's a musician, who's also a martial artist, who also had sciatica problems, probably had something in Dhanishta. So I think you might be on to something there for sure.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've spoken about musicians enough, and really this is a star of music that you will see Dhanishta quite a bit with music. Yeah, but it's very musical, specifically drums. But you'll see many. I think Dr. Paiji has mentioned flutes before.
Flutes, absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And mridangam and drum. These are some themes that I've always seen, but I've also seen people who play the piano and the guitar.
You know, it's a star. It will have many talents. And, you know, Kapilji's not here now, but I was thinking about his question about the difference of the Aquarius side. It is very, very different. It is interesting how the Rashis will define that. And it's not only because of the padas as well. Like Aditya Ji's touched on that Leo is the first padas ruled by the sun. It's also Ashtamamsha. And it's the most dangerous pada. I mean, it's recommended to recite Mahamrityunjay mantra if you have this pada, actually. So it tells you, like, and also fourth pada Bharani, you know, because those are very mysterious, between life and death in some way. So those Ashtamamsha points, we want to think about what they are. And it's not to scare anyone. It's just that there could be some parts of the person straddling two worlds, or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be so fatalistic. Obviously, we have plenty of people that live very long lives with first pada Dhanishta or fourth pada Bharani. It's not about that. It's just that there is some kind of, I would even say, obstructing energy in those that portion of the nakshatra, but it also gives a tremendous amount of force. And so Mahamrityunjay helps direct that into a more life force, as opposed to some kind of just agitated force or some kind of energy that we really don't know what to do with. It gives it some direction. I mean, that's the recommendation for that. But when you think about the Aquarius pada, the two that are land in Aquarius, you are getting Libra and Scorpio. And you are getting more of a, it's like when you do see Aquarius, I love what Adityaji said about the fourth pada, because definitely technical, as you said, because there's something always with Scorpio that's a little bit investigative. It likes to investigate, it likes to rip apart, it likes to get to the bottom, it likes to discover things. So there is that. But I was just thinking of, Kapilji was reluctant to say some of the negative factors of this. And for all of the viewers who know me well, I am the last person to talk negative about any nakshatra at all. So when I say this, I'm not saying it to say that you will be like this if you have this, or there's too many things in the chart to determine this. In some combinations, okay, it's not all combinations, but in some combinations, I have seen the Aquarius side to be incredibly, there's an element of control that can be there.
Yeah.
A need for control that can manifest as positive or negative. It's just there sometimes. And it probably goes back to a little bit of that relationship with Scorpio, falling on the Scorpio Rashi, falling in the 10th from it. There's a little bit of a, with the Aquarius in general, it might be subtle, it might be silent, or it could be loud, depending, once again, on the rest of the chart. If the person has an Aries Lagna, they're probably not going to be quiet about it. But if they have a, more mild Lagna and a placement of the Lagna Lord that's kind of mild, but then they have, they have some prominent grahas in Dhanishta and the Aquarius portion, there's some thing with those grahas there that they don't feel maybe, and correct me guys, once again, I'm so humble with this stuff. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm going off of observation. And what I've seen a lot is that the grahas that are sitting there feel a little bit not unstable, but they need to seek some kind of control of their environment. And they'll find the way to engineer that. And that happens, And so you could say that it comes out for some reason in partnership. I don't know if that's because Leo becomes 7th. And, Leo being on the 7th, Simha is not always possessive. And guys, I never like speaking negative because people take it so personal. And I'm just begging you all that, all of us have things in our horoscopes that are, we're all human. Why can't we just be human and not worry about negativity, positivity, and just say it is what it is, So with Leo falling on the 7th, there can be a little bit, if grahas are there, you got to remember from the perspective of those grahas, they may seek that Leo energy with the spouse, or they may seek that Scorpio energy through the world or the career, or they may seek that Venusian energy through the eyes of those grahas and which karkas they are. So if there's like Dara Karka and Dhanishta, you definitely want to look at the 7th house from the Dara Karka. And so then, then if it's an Aquarius pada, or if it's Matru Karka, to Dr. Pai's point earlier about mother, and you definitely want to look at that 4th house. And you want to see what's going on with that 4th house from the Matru Karka that's sitting in Dhanishta. And there's going to be, see, the Venus sign, there's going to be something very different than a sign of the sun or a sign of Mars Ketu. So I think Kapil was kind of touching on something with, it can struggle in partnerships, both of them equally, because of the imprint of Bhishma Pitama. In general, Dhanishta may struggle in partnership one way or another. Even if it's in a happy marriage, you'll often hear them say, I sometimes don't know the purpose of this. Or I sometimes don't know, is there some other purpose? Like they're not really feeling that they're purpose in life is fulfilled through their partnership. And if you're one of those people that are listening and you have Dhanishta and you do feel that, all I would say is, A, I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. But B, I would ask you to look at other things in your chart that may be supporting giving that purpose to the partnership. Because Dhanishta by itself, and if it's prominent, it's purposeful, but its purpose isn't always. It might be to protect its spouse or protect its mother or protect its children, but it's not always finding the purpose in the gentle exchange of union and those kinds of things that go on with Venus. Maybe with the mother. In some cases, there's some of that. You know, you think about Bhishma's relationship with the mother was very special. Ganga, I mean, she had him. Devrata, right? She had him first.
Yeah.
And he would go back to the Ganga every day. He'd go talk to her, right?
That's
very, very sacred, very special relationship there. And his mother is otherworldly, right? She's not a human. She's Ganga.
And that's why it's also called as Ganga Putra.
Yes, Ganga Putra Bhishma. Yes, absolutely. So Devrata becomes Bhishma through the vow, and that vow, then he gets handed off to his father. And his father is really very interesting, because if you look at his father and his mother, they couldn't be more different. His mother was the epitome of strength in a way. You know, she was very, I mean, she's releasing these Ashta Vasus by drowning them. No one's going to understand that, but she can see it, you know. And Shantanu he's looking at the king, he's looking at her thinking that she's being cruel, violent. You know, the story is very violent. I mean, anyone in our modern society reading it, they just say it's child abuse. I mean, they would say it's the worst thing in the world for a mother to go and drowned her children. But if she could see that they wanted to be released from the human birth, this is very debatable. I mean, it's not very human conversation. But she was not a human. So she knew this. She had made that vow with them that they could be born through her. And so she does this. And, you know, the king is very given to human weaknesses, right? He's very given. He sees, you know, a new woman, and he's he doesn't know what to do. He's not sleeping, right? He's restless for her. Bhishma observes. He's like, what's wrong with my father? So finally, he goes and finds out. And once he does, he gives up everything and his noble character for his father, with a definite result. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of share as much as I could before I had to go, guys. I'm sorry to talk so much. Last time I didn't talk at all. And now I feel like I'm speaking too much. But I really wanted to honor Shravana. I know a lot of people wanted to hear more. And unfortunately, we were having technical difficulties, and there were portions of it that I couldn't even catch and all of that. So I did my best to edit. So that wasn't the guy's fault. That was actually my fault. I was cutting myself out because so much was problematic with that recording. So please forgive me, guys. And actually, Shravana Nakshatra really, really deserves to be properly honored. Is actually a nakshatra that I love. So it was interesting to have to be silent during it. So, okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Evji, for coming and sharing. I think there was so many wonderful points that you have brought. I was also thinking about many of the points. One of the points which I want to highlight, which I felt was very, very appropriate for this, is many people who also go and, you know, who are childless, they go and ask mannat. We call it mannat here. You know, asking for a child. People go to various places. Usually, the most common people who go and get is through people who have taken Jivan Samadhi. Jivan Samadhi are these saints. They're also fakirs. Fakir means, you know, these are Babas who have also taken Samadhi, and, you know, they go to their places and ask for a child. They're given a child, but there would be something Dhanishta like in that, you know, the child that comes.
Yes, Dr. Paiji, that's exactly what I've witnessed that this night earlier when I shared that I've witnessed it, many of the people that I feel are very trapped in the human condition, and they really don't want the limits of the human condition. And hence the tapasya of Mars is very appealing to them. Whether that tapasya, sweat, they like sweat, meaning that it's not Venus, is Mars. So Mars is born of Lord Shiva's sweat.
Yeah.
And so they like that idea of either working hard, or they like the idea of applying their energy to something. And sometimes that does become tapasya. And they will like the idea of transcending the human state somehow. Like I said, it could even be with a glorious death. And that specifically in that Leo pada or the Virgo pada, because the Virgo one is where Mars exalts.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that. So those two, the ones that fall in Makara, specifically have very often something very manicured about them. Very, I mean, remember Taurus is on the 5th house, you know, too. Like something about their intelligence works in a worldly way, right? Because the 5th house is very intelligent. It's where our intelligence is. So when Taurus falls there, they're very aware of the world, very aware of the world. So, you know, I believe Jiddu Krishnamurti is a Dhanishta Lagna. And I can't remember if it's a Leo Navamsha or Virgo Navamsha, but it is one of them. And if you watch how he speaks and how everything's about detachment from the human state, this is the point I really want to leave everyone on with Dhanishta. Because regardless if you get the most worldly or earthly person in the room, you think they're worldly because they're running all these businesses or they're famous like a Marilyn Monroe or something. You think they're very worldly because they're trapped in that, they're trapped in it. And they seem to amplify it somehow, because this nakshatra gives name, Vishnu Sahasranamam. Your name becomes known. You know, Vishnu, the all-pervading one, takes your name and blows it on the wind, and it gets to everyone's ears. It gets to the Shravana, you know. So it's a very interesting nakshatra because it can give so much name, but at the heart of the person very often is a not wanting to be here. And if you just listen to Krishnamurti's speeches, he's not a romantic with devotion or meditation, or he's very romantic with his words, but I would say that he is, everything he talks about goes back to some kind of being outside of the human condition and observing the question. And then he just asks more questions. You know, that's his tactic, because he had a lot of Mercury too, which is to ask more questions. But the Dhanishta part you can observe in the way that he's not willingly accepting being human. And many of these guys, they are transcendent of the human state, but then you find out later after their death, they had many human traits that they were uncomfortable with. Women on the side, a lot of wealth, a lot of these guys. And when they have Dhanishta like this, they'll present something and they really want that thing. They really are, they really may even personify it, because once again, having women does not make you a sinner. It's the motivation, it's the respect, it's other things around that that's going to become more binding for you. But I'm just saying that a lot of these guys will speak one way with Dhanishta because they don't want to be bound to the human state. But then you examine their actions, you examine their life, and you will see a very material side sometimes that they just never were comfortable with, because they didn't want to be human in the first place. They didn't want those human, what they see as weaknesses. So it almost comes off as if they were hiding something, when I really don't think that was the agenda. I don't think Dhanishta is purposely deceitful. That's not, there are other nakshatras that love to play with that energy. Dhanishta does not like to purposely play with it. You know, the Ashlesha being in the 7th, I think there's an element of it that it can end up saying and speaking to its idealism so strongly that when you find out what its inner life is, you're kind of shocked because they almost speak against it. And it's not a bad thing. What I'm trying to say, the only thing I'm trying to say by this is they themselves are not comfortable with those human weaknesses very often. They see them as weaknesses, really may not be a weakness. That would be my point.
We always talk about Dhanishta with Ganga and all. So do you think the remedy with in a holy water dip?
The remedy, I think, is serving their mother. And sometimes I think even if they have a bad relationship with their mother, because the reverse can happen, right? Anytime there's super positive energy in a nakshatra, it can get turned to a negative at the extreme. So sometimes serving the mother, I do think, Adityaji, that rivers, sacred, keeping rivers clean, perhaps, like the purification of rivers. The other thing is, I would almost be tempted to say getting more comfortable with the energy of Ashlesha. Because even though Ashlesha is across from them and they have many of the traits, they are, just like Ashlesha is a little uncomfortable with some of the energies in Dhanishta. Dhanishta is very uncomfortable with some energies in Ashlesha, because Ashlesha is a little bit more given to sensuality naturally without making it, not trying to detach from it. But both of them are trapped in human form. One is a Naga trapped in human form, and the other is some other kind of divinity. As Dr. Paiji was listing, that there's other divinities that are elemental. So Dhanishta's elemental something trapped, and Ashlesha's a Naga trapped. And so there is some kind of energy that it might help them to get comfortable with. And to your point, what's fascinating about this Adityaji is that Cancer being in that place across from Mars exaltation, and that's specifically where I'm speaking about Dhanishta, with rivers, that's waters, you know, that's waters. So that's an interesting thing. And I do wonder about the other portion of Dhanishta with the Pitris. That might be the portion that deals even more with the remedies around the fathers.
No, because Pitris, Magha is opposite to Dhanishta too.
Yeah, Dhanishta, 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, because and guys, it's interesting with Gandanta points, because what you've got, and I'm speaking to Ashlesha right here, just thinking of Dhanishta opposing it. It's very interesting with Gandanta points, because what you've got is different power dynamics throughout each of them. So with the first one, you've got Revati, Ashwini. Very clear. Revati is hospitals, institutions, nurses, and the medical staff. Ashwini is the doctor, the specialist. Revati is the emergency vehicle, and Ashwini is the driver of that vehicle. So, you know, Venus exalts in Revati, vehicles, right? It's the one that's coming to save you. Venus also, according to Jaimini, is the rescuer. Like, it puts out fires, right? So Venus exalts in Revati.
Sanjeevani.
Yeah, Sanjeevani, of course. So in that Gandanta, it's pretty easy to say that that's very medical. Everything around the Gandanta between Revati and Ashwini is very, it's your power struggle with life and death, really, because what you've got is Revati, which is the nurse, the doctor, or the hospital, the doctor, and then death. You've immediately got Barney. So you can see how that goes. That's a very powerful medical crew right there. You've got hospital, institution, doctor, death, or rebirth. So that's very clear what that Gandanta is about. Now, when you get to Ashlesha and Magha, you've got a similar thing, but it's our power play with sex and with male and female dynamics and procreative power. See, what you've got there is mama, daddy, baby. What you've really got is Ashlesha in Cancer, the mother, Magha in Leo, the father, and then what? Purva Falguni, the production of children. So this is our power, the male and female power dynamic exists in Ashlesha and Magha. This is where male and female dynamic is really pronounced. And in Purva Falguni, you get the union and the production of a child. When you get to Jyeshta and Mula, you're dealing with the power dynamics of politics. And that's why Purva Ashada, the victory, comes after that Gandanta. So you've got Jyeshta, which is Indra, the most political. You've got Mula, which is Nritti, a seek to control chaos. Nritti's chaos, you know, and it's very interesting. That Gandanta is always a obvious power play. The other ones aren't obvious. That's what's interesting about it. The Jyeshta Mula Purva Ashara can be very obvious. If a person has a graha throughout each one of them, it'll be very obvious that there's going to be either people will have power dynamics with them, like, and they don't want it. You know, someone that has like Jyeshta and Purva Ashada, they might not want it at all because the Mula is left out, but Mula is hemmed in, and that Mula is gonna find a way to create chaos.
This Gandanta you're talking about, when you talk about Magha and all, it's like Brahma, the creation. When you talk about Jyeshtha Mula, it looks like Vishnu, the preservation. When you talk about Revati and Ashwini, that's like destruction. That's like Shiva energy. So each Gandanta is like, looks like this Trinity energy.
You can almost apply the Trinity to all of them in different ways, in a way, but you're right. I mean, there definitely procreation is the Ashlesha Magha to Purva Falguni, that without a doubt. And then rebirth is definitely happening. You go to the hospital, doctor operates on you, and you go to another life. You know, you've got Revati, Ashwini, Barney. And then, yeah, you're right. Then there is, yeah, you're very right about that with Vishnu, the Jyeshta, because it's Indra, and Indra is always calling on Vishnu.
Calling on Vishnu,
He's like, rescue me from all these politics with these asuras that are troubling me. And then you get Purva Ashada, which is the victory, or the Mahabharata starts in that. So you can, I just wanted to highlight these Gandantas because with Dhanishta, the Gandanta it's across from is the power dynamic between men and women. And what did Bhishma renounce? So that is why he was born under the right star, to get a powerful boon from that, because someone else may have taken that vow and not gotten that boon, but because his Muladhara, the seventh from him, is sitting in that, because that the serpent that's coiled in him was in that dynamic, because he's said to be born under Dhanishta. So because of that power dynamic and him renouncing it, there was a supernatural power, a supernatural child was born to him, because he renounced Purva Falguni, he renounced Ashlesha. See, this can go into the psychology of a Dhanishta person for sure. And it can even manifest where, you know, like let's say a woman who's staying home with her children, she really loves her married life. So you wouldn't think she's a classic Dhanishta. She really loves her married life. She really loves her family and all of that. But then the husband comes to you and says that, I wish we were more affectionate. I wish we were more intimate. You know, she puts all of this energy into the protection of the children. And she's, you know, she's such a good wife. She's always caring for me and all that. But I wish I wish we had more of this other element, you know. It can do that. And you see the dilemma of someone like Marilyn Monroe, who had both. So she had both the Ashlesha and the Dhanishta. And definitely her play in the world was this very sensual, seductive, all these things that you would think of with Rohini and Ashlesha, you know, which she had. But she was always upset over that role in her diaries. She wanted purpose, where her moon was, Dhanishta. She wanted purpose. She wanted to be taken serious as an actress. Some of the gentlemen that were with her said that she was not even a very skilled lover. They weren't trying to insult her. They were just saying that even though she was very seductive, she was really innocent when it came to intimacy. She was actually very innocent. She really didn't know much about that. So it's fascinating because you can see this image of someone and think, oh no, they wouldn't have this quality of Dhanishta. And she did. And she had the Aquarius side of Dityaji, which is interesting because she was very intelligent.
Makes sense.
It's speculated that her IQ, I believe, it wasn't higher than Einstein's, but it was much higher than JFK's. And her IQ was quite high. All you got to do is look it up. She was very intelligent. And one of her husbands actually, you know, had insulted her, saying that she didn't speak in his way. You know, he was, I believe, was he a writer? I don't remember. He was the one that was involved with the intellectual communities in the academic world, that husband. She felt very insulted by him because he treated her as if she was a dumb blonde, so to speak. And really, come to find out, she was very, very intelligent and very much struggling with being in a human body. Very much. She struggled every day. She was keeping these diaries. She was just not, she didn't feel good being in her skin. So anyway, this is just an example of someone who's passed on, and I know they have family members still, so I want to be very respectful. I'm also highlighting her purity here because many people think that someone who gets naked in front of a camera or plays certain roles is no longer pure. And that's a very surface way of looking at it, because people that knew her in intimate life, she was quite different. And so this is that tricky thing with Dhanishta once again, and Ashlesha. Outwardly, Ashlesha almost appears, because it can be so seductive, it can appear the certain way. It doesn't mean that it's not innocent or that it's going to manipulate you or something like that. And Dhanishta can appear very upright, and it looks like it has a lot of class, you know, and they can speak to you so well. I mean, I believe even Abraham Lincoln has some Dhanishta, prominent Dhanishta. Of course, I had mentioned President Obama, of people who hold them, and Krishnamurti, people who hold themselves in this kind of state. But it doesn't mean that behind the scenes, you're going to see that same posture. So it's an interesting dynamic there. Okay, guys, I talked more. So,
no worry. I think it is going good.
Oh, this is some great information, Evji. I would really, appreciate what you have said, because even on the whole principle of the Gandanta, I always think Gandanta is always controlled by God, and I describe God as generate for G, operate for Vishnu, and dissolve or destroy, which is for Shiva. So generate is creation, Brahma. So God is generate, operate, destroy.
So kind of what Adityaji was saying. We have the generation taking place and all the chemical, think about how chemical Ashlesha is, and think about how chemical reproduction is, and all of that. So it's exactly that. And
so
then
I want to highlight the Gandanta again, just with one thing, with like, it seems like it is also connected with the Grandhis, right? So that you have the Brahma Grandhi, the Vishnu Grandhi, and the Shiva Rudra Grandhi, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems like there's an esoteric side, or like the hidden medical thing going on with the Grandhi also potentially. So with probably with Dhanishta, because it's directly opposite to a Gantanta, that one major Gantanta around the heart, you can see the Vishnu Grandhi kind of thing is kind of very strong or prominent.
That's really strong, Santipji, because it is the power play between male and female dynamic, or just opposites.
Right. So I think it's a very interesting point that Aditya and Evji was talking about all that. So I do think that there is a quality of that, what's it called? Well, the people who are involved into those kind of practices, so this Grandhi points being activated, even in the Vishnu Sahasrama, I think in the Lalita Sahasranam, you have this thing of like Grandhis being described, if I'm not mistaken. So the three Grandhis are called by its name, and the goddess who's operating these three Grandhis and so forth. So it's very interesting kind of thing to think about. But yeah, I just want to put that into Ganta, since we're talking about Gantanta, I just thought I'll just add that also.
Oh, that's really strong. That actually got me thinking, because I was, thinking of even Cancer and Leo being a natural relationship with the heart too. And then you have that Ashtamamsha Pada landing in Leo, which is the more, the one that you want to look after your health a little bit more if you have it, and not push run yourself in the ground too much with your heart.
Well, one thing I can just say with the Ashtamamshapada is that because Bhishma was able to will his own death, these natives will have this gift of willing their own death. They will be able to hang on to whatever their life they have, and they'll be able to, like, you know, okay, I'm leaving now, then I'll leave. That kind of thing I've seen. I've actually seen that. So I've seen this gift of willing your own death, or that kind of thing. So it's not that bad as it appears to be, but you know, that's the positive thing about the Dhanishta. Yeah.
Yes, that's they have that willpower. They have serious willpower. Okay, guys.
Okay, thank you, Evji.
So beautiful to be here with you. I wanted to stay the whole time. Now I talked more. So.
Oh, that's fine. That's what we
But people don't complain.
I hope it was valuable. It's a humble offering. So from a useless person in a way. So, okay, guys. So much love to you and the audience. Thank you guys so much for always listening to what we offer here. It's really just a bond that we have with these nakshatras, and we offer it in friendship and in being fellow students of Jyotish. I think lifelong students. I myself can't claim to be a teacher yet. So, okay, guys.
Yeah, have a safe flight, Evji.
Okay.
Yeah, bye. Okay, Aditya, all yours now.
Okay. So anyway, we will talk about Delphinus, which also is connected with the dolphin. This constellation is called Delphinus, which is connected with dolphin, and you can see the shape. The shape of it looks like the dolphin shape too, correct? Like the head of the dolphin and the tail of the dolphin. So the shape also resembles like dolphin. Now, many characteristics of dolphin you can connect with this nakshatra. First of all, dolphin, water. We saw this water connection with the opposite of Dhanishta is Cancer, which is again a water sign. And let's see about how dolphins are connected. We will talk about that. But this also we raised a point that the symbol is drum or flute for this nakshatra. And especially if you see this looks like, I don't know what it is called, that stick which we beat to get the drum beats. So it appears like a drumstick, not the vegetable drumstick, but at least like that, with which you beat the drum to produce the sound. So the symbol in astrology is drum or flute, and even the astronomical symbol, if you see the constellation, it exactly resembles like the band, or through which the band with which you strike the drum with to create sound. So it's how I just want to tell you, just by looking at the constellation and by knowing the stars and by knowing, like we were discussing about the stars, the failed star, the qualities and all, how much points we can think of them. Now, dolphin, I was telling, what is dolphin? Dolphins are a good sense of taste. And I have seen Dhanishta natives with very, very peculiar taste. They are very much, because I have a friend who is, I think it's Lagna or his moon is in the Dhanishta, but very particular about the taste in food and all, especially very particular about not only food, but whatever he does. If he writes a paper, or if he does any act, or if he makes the food, very careful, very like everything he wants to be in a right way. And similarly, that's a good thing, of course, but at the same time, that can be bothersome also to some other people, because if you are very particular, for example, you have a wife and you're very particular about the salt and the sugar, and you get irritated if that it goes less or more. You know what is the condition then, what will be. You have to adjust sometime. So I have seen that with Dhanishta, and then fights, fights with respect to that in every household because of the addition of more or less salt and all. So that's one thing. Very good sense of taste with very peculiar taste. It's good in one way, but you need to strike a balance. And of course, dolphins. They said that they have a communication. Dolphins do communicate. They have some sound. They have social behavior. So dolphins are very, very interesting beings. I think something when they have communication, I think it looks like an aquatic creature, very close to a mammal. It is a mammal.
They're very, very intelligent also. Yeah, it's very intelligent also.
Intelligent also, exactly. with very well fitting with the characteristics of Dhanishta Nakshatra, maybe. Because as we said, Dhanishta Nakshatra, sometimes they're not like, they are in this world, but not of this world. So similarly, when you see dolphins, they are in the aquatic world, but not of aquatic world. Something like that, you know, not, so I feel that. Now, if you see in the Greek mythology too, there's a story, and again, how this Delphinus constellation came into picture. And through that story, we will see what are the things that we could learn. So Amphitrite is nothing but who is goddess of sea. She's the wife of Poseidon. Okay, and Poseidon basically chose Amphitrite for marriage, but then she refused the offer of marriage and she fled to someone else. Who? This person, Amphitrite. She fled with Atlas, and this was, I think, Poseidon came to know, and Poseidon then sent a dolphin to basically to bring her back, to rescue her from Atlas and bring her back. So she was brought back, and finally she became the wife of Poseidon. Amphitrite and Poseidon were married, and Poseidon was happy with the dolphin's work, so he said, okay, I will give you a place in the sky. And then he made this Delphinus constellation, and that's where the story goes. Now this is a story. Now what do you will learn in this story? Marriage issues, flying with someone else, you know. And this exact, all these stories, I think we have said this in Bhishma. Marriage issues. He got those Amba, Ambika and Ambalika from Kashi. Brought same thing here. Of course, here dolphin is going and bringing them back. But this is totally Greek mythology. We have nowhere to in. But you see how the connection and all is there. So just from this story, we can understand there's a searching theme, there is a finding theme, there is marriage issues problem, there is some power struggle you can see there. It's a Greek story completely. Amphitrite and Poseidon and Delphin and who is this Atlas and all those are all Greek mythology stories. But the theme is common. The theme is very much common with this story of Bhishma. Of course, a little bit different, but at least that marriage part thing. And if you know this story, definitely you can say that, okay, this constellation or this Dhanishta may have issues with marriage and other things. That's clearly one part. Doesn't matter if you're in Hindu mythology you follow, you can get the qualities. If you follow Greek mythology, you can get the qualities. Getting the qualities and understanding a nakshatra is what we are what our target is, correct? So anyway, talking about some of the nakshatra characteristics which Dr. Pai mentioned, it is a Kya Paitri Nakshatra, the power to give fame and abundance. So again, name and fame. Foundation above is birth, foundation below is prosperity. Result is bringing people together. So dolphin brought Arion to his land. There was another one more story with this Greek mythology, which again dolphin was going and bringing Arion to his land. There was another. I had two stories actually, but I removed one story because copyright issues and all that. I cannot use those pictures. So there's let me tell only one story. But dolphin is going and bringing Arion to his land or something. You know, this going and bringing someone, even Bhishma going and bringing those Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. We never talked about the symbol, but I just thought maybe I should talk about the symbol too. The animal given for Dhanishta is lioness, female lion. The sound of Dhanishta is ga, gi, gu and ge. So starting with G. The tree is Shami tree, the Indian mesquite tree. And the nature of this nakshatra is chara or movable. So just I thought maybe I'm like more like a professor type. I just want to give the information because if this information can be used by someone else in some scenario, feel free. Finally, it comes to festival. That's one thing which I always like. The festival, one festival is Thai Pusam, which Thai is a Tamil festival. It's not only celebrated in Tamil Nadu, but also in Malaysia, in Singapore, all Tamil, wherever Tamil dominated regions. And here the story goes, it's celebrated in the month of Jan or February. Thai, the month Thai in Tamil comes from January 14th to February 14th. That is when the sun is transiting Capricorn. That is what the Thai Masam. Same when Malayali is called as Magara Masam. Correct? Makara Masam is same as Thai Masam. In Tamil, they call Thai. In Malayalam, they call Magara. And when Pusam is Pushya Nakshatra. So when the sun is going in Capricorn, sun is in Capricorn and the moon is in Pushya Nakshatra, this festival is celebrated, Thai Pusam. And what is the festival? Actually, there was a demon called Surapadman. and he was giving trouble to the gods. So the gods went to Shiva and then say, please rescue us. And then Shiva created Skanda. Skanda fought with him and killed the demon, and that's why we celebrate this Thaipusam. Now, why this festival? Why I'm talking about this festival in this? It is exactly when the sun is transiting the Dhanishta Nakshatra. We know Dhanishta Nakshatra is what is it's a Mars Nakshatra, Martian Nakshatra. Skanda is a god related to, we connect with Mars. So it's interesting to see how this festival of Skanda comes exactly when the sun is transiting a Martian Nakshatra. So that's one thing which I would point, which always happens in myths. Every time I give 2-3 festivals in every nakshatras, I think probably by the end of this, we will be having at least 80 festivals, probably 60 to 70 festivals, definitely. So how this is connected with the Martian energies, you can think of. Now, this is a question for you people. Name a common festival during February 7th to 20th every year.
I think Shivratri.
Shivratri, there is Shivratri, but that more fits into
Aquarius or something, yeah.
Ratha Sapnami usually comes during this time.
Come on, forget all your Indian festivals.
So, yeah.
Okay, your
February
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, exactly. Valentine's.
Okay.
What is happening in Valentine's Day? Mars is in Dhanishta, exaltation. Mars is what? We did talk about sexual things and, Mars, we were talking about all those. Valentine's Day, lovers festival. How many lovers festival we have? In I don't know. How many of them we celebrate in a year other than Valentine's Day?
Yeah, just that. I don't think there's anything else here. Thank God.
Even I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, of course, maybe Hindu festival will be there between husband and wife, but I don't know. That is more, and that's not like Valentine. That's not, Valentine is totally different fun stuff, I guess, compared to, but remember, every 14 February, and it is interesting, 14 February is the exact day when the sun is transiting from Capricorn to Aquarius. Exact transition. What is exactly opposite?
Yeah, heart, right? Cancer and Leo, what we talked about, all that, yeah.
Exact Gandanta happening on 14.
Yeah.
And sexual, all those, and Mars in Dhanishta is exalted, correct? Second pada is where Mars exalted. So high sexual energy, you can say. Anyway, now I was just thinking why we are only talking about Mars. We should see about Venus too, what happens to Venus. And when the sun is set to Capricorn 30 or Aquarius 0, Venus cannot go 47 degree. It has to be plus minus 47 degree from sun, correct? Astronomically, no doubt. Venus always will be plus minus 47 degree from the sun. So if you take that minus 47 of Capricorn, it will come to Sagittarius 13, and plus 47 from Aquarius 0 will come to Pisces 17. So it has to be somewhere in this region, Pisces, Sagittarius to Pisces. So either it has to be in Aquarius or Capricorn, or Pisces is, we know where Venus exalts. We know Capricorn and Aquarius is again when it's a sign of Saturn. Venus feels Saturn and Venus are friends. But again, I don't know. I didn't see much correlation.
Also, but Sagittarius also Purvashada. It's a Venus ruled nakshatra also. So,
Nakshatra. So one is Venus ruled nakshatra. Two signs are basically friends.
Right.
Venus, and then there's Venus, of course, exalts in Pisces. Of course, it exalts at 28 degree. But anyway. But I don't know. It's a very broad region. I won't consider this much. But I was just thinking about why Venus, because when you talk about sexual, it has to be Mars and Venus. Both. You just cannot talk about one, just Mars. Then I was thinking, I was just, when you people were talking, I was just remembered that there is also one festival in Tamil, which I just, before the start only, I just remembered it. It is called Avni Avittam. Avni Avittam.
Right, yeah.
In Tamil, it's celebrated in the month of Avni, and Avittam. Avittam is again, Nakshatra, it's basically Dhanishta Nakshatra. It is when the month of Avni comes around August, September. It is falling just after that Raksha Bandhan, to be precise. Because Raksha Bandhan, we know it falls in the Shravana Nakshatra. That's why it's a Shravana month, because the full moon has to be correct. It's Narli Purnima. The next day or the same day is Avittam, Avni Avittam. They change the thread. The thread which they wear, Munj. Now I think Munj they call what? Especially Tamil Brahmins, they will change that thread on that day every year. So Avni Avittam. Now I don't know how many threads are there, Dr. Pai. Do you know? I don't know. Actually,
There are three.
Mm-hmm.
Before marriage, you wear 6, which means 2 threads of 3 strands each. So that will be after marriage, it will be 6.
Okay.
Before marriage, it is only 3. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh.
Okay.
And
So they changed that.
fourth thread also after marriage.
Yeah. So that's the day when they changed the thread. Now, what is that connected with the Dhanishta? I don't know. But that.
Well, it's very interesting because in Chinese culture there is this concept of the husband and wife being linked with the thread, with a red thread and so forth. There is this concept. There is a god, Cupid. The Chinese Cupid apparently ties in the husband and wife with a red thread also. So it's interesting. There is a thread thing. But what is also interesting about Avani Avatam is also it's also from what if I recollect correctly, it's also a very good day to supposedly initiate Gayatri mantra apparently. So usually Avani Avatam is a very famous day for initiating Gayatri mantra and so forth. So that's an interesting thing to highlighting also. Very interesting that it's correlating with the thread also. So perhaps some new mantra, new thread is being coming into your life, things like that, potentially that, yeah.
Yeah, but the 3 threads in the Munja or whatever we call, Agni, it also signifies the Gayatri, because Gayatri is made of, 24 syllabled, but it is 3 octets, which means each thread will signify one line of 8 syllables. 8 syllables, 8 syllables, 8 syllables. That's why if you see all the chaste people who have been initiated to Gayatri, they hold their thread when they are chanting the mantras. So they draw the power from that thread, which has been, you wear the thread, and then you change it every year, or you change it whenever you go to any crematorium and you come back, you have to change your thread.
Even I don't know. In our religion, in our custom, we have to wear that before marriage also. Like before marriage, they will ask us to wear that. Otherwise, marriage cannot be done. So first you have to wear that thread. Then they will do the marriage. And I guess in my I know when a wife dies, the husband has to break that thread. Something they do. I know they go in a river and then they do something.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's a 3 thread with Shravana having 3, and thread I think can also link with Satabisha, the circle also potentially. So very interesting that.
That's what I was.
And there is also a theme of giving, the thread has to be worn differently for different purposes. For example, during the Tarpanam, when you are giving Rishi Tarpanam, the thread has to be worn around your neck. It cannot be worn around your. So Rishi Tarpanam always has to happen from the bottom of your, this part. So you hold it with the stick, the kusha grass, and the Tarpanam has to go from here, this part. Okay. Pitru Tarpanam always has to be done from here.
Yeah.
That is when your Munja has to come towards the left direction. And when you're giving Deva Tarpanam, only it is in the right direction. Deva Tarpanam has to be given from from the top of your finger. Pitru Tarpanam is always from the middle of your thumb and the other thing. Then Rishi Tarpanam is from here. So the thing also has to be removed, and it should be put around for Rishi. For Pitra, it is on the left side, and normally you wear it on the right side. There is a principle around also when you give Tarpanam that the Avitam also, the Avni also has to be changed, the Munj.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting that also the Tarpan, right? Tarpan is a ritualistic, you're offering water to your Pitris also.
Yeah.
So Pitris, again, Magha is also directly opposite to like Dhanishta. So you have that thing going on also.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Interesting. I just thought, Avni Avitam means Dhanishta. So it's definitely celebrated on. Sun is transiting Avni. Avni month is when the sun is going through Leo. Avitam is Dhanishta basically. Bhishma Pitam, I think we have talked a lot, so I will just skip this slide. Some actress, I just thought, who are the famous persons? Like, of course, there were many foreign actors. I don't know much about them. Ashton Kutcher is also having something. His birthday falls during February. But I said maybe I know this woman as 2 women who are Madhubala and Sushma Swaraj. Exactly their birthday, 14 February. Yours are different. And it's interesting to see their life. Of course, Madhubala, when you see her life, you should see her movie, Mughal-e Azam. Beautiful. beautiful movie and beautiful acting. Problems with marriage. She has number of men was associated with her. But I'm not saying anything against her, but you can read her in Wikipedia about her. But acting wise, gorgeous. Sushma Swaraj, another just recently passed away last year. Politician, Indian politician, came again 14th. And I guess these are the two women whom we really appreciate for their work. And it's so apparently that I chose this because so now you can see because I have something with Venus and Dhanishta connection something. So that's why in this first and in this example I have taken these two women who I really like about their acting or their in the wherever whichever field they work. Happens to be both two women, and the same day their birthday was falling, 14th Feb. Exactly, of course, years are different. So you see how even I, as an individual, you take examples based on your nakshatras and your planets and how you talk about. So that's why I call this science of astrology something. It's something different. Who knows? We will come to know within this time frame. But that's all I have for Dhanishta, and I think we are.
Aditya, can you show that Bhishma Pita slide? I'm just curious about that.
This one?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's. I just want to highlight a couple of things here. One is that tough life fight with Pandavas, right? Great teachers. One thing about Bhishma, I mean, we have glorified Bhishma Pitama for sure, but you'll hear spiritual gurus actually speaking about how Bhishma was on the wrong side of the law, on the wrong side of dharma. So how the vow was like, his vow was blinding to the point where he wasn't willing to do the right thing. In fact, I say that one of the things from one of these Bhagavad Gita teachers whom I had listened to at some point was telling how the mistake which Bhishma did was that, he took the vow, but he was not willing to act in the present moment. He lived in the past, so he actually lived in the past. Oh, I took this vow. I shouldn't change my vow forever. But then, when the actual adharma was happening with Draupadi and all that, with even with the Pandavas, then he still remained silent because of the vow, So he was blinded by his vow. So that's an actual aspect I just want to highlight that, because there's an actual, and of course he had to play his role and so forth. Mahabharata, all that happened. He played his character and all that, right? So that did play out. But I've seen this theme, very interesting theme about how.
Very important because they say going to what is that going in past and nostalgic is a characteristic of Ashlesha.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Ashlesha opposite is Dhanishta.
Yeah.
So now, when you say this, I can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's a very important point. I think the other thing also, past life karma for sure, which we talked about, separation of parents for sure. That's very interesting. Marriage problems we talked about enough. Tough life fight with Pandavas also very interesting. Great teachers, very important point. I think that's not been highlighted. Because the story goes that Ganga took Bhishma to all the great sages in the heavens. I've seen that many times. These natives might be blessed with really good school, like they might go to very good colleges, universities, and so forth. Top colleges in the country, top universities in the country, in the world even sometimes. There's also something. So great teachers definitely is an interesting point. Skilled in art, weapons, knowledge, yeah, that's for true. Fame and abundance also. Adamant nature, celibacy, yeah. I think the part I wanted to highlight was this: how he wasn't as a character, as his role. He didn't stand up for dharma when an adharma was being done. So that's a potential flaw for a native to okay, just because they might find themselves perhaps stuck in situations where they are Duryodhana is literally raping Draupadi and then, they're not doing anything, right? So that kind of thing. So it's a challenging kind of thing. So it's one of those things where I think even Krishna was the one who actually ended up saving Draupadi in the end. So I do think that perhaps there might be some inherent karma between a Dhanishta native and a Krishna's Rohini Nakshatra native also because of that. Because Rohini is also associated with Krishna and Dhanishta is also associated with Bhishma, sorry. So that's one thing there. So that's one point I wanted to bring about Bhishma, But yeah, I just want to check this thing because we forgot about that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll just go. I think we have already done a mega blockbuster by this time, but
No,
I
we
just
are
like
2 hours and 2 hour 29 minutes till now. I'm
so
sitting
it's
on
like, yeah, I'm sure whoever is listening to here is had at this point is at least enrolled the third day point or like, either they're watching on a weekend or whatever. But yeah, I want to highlight one of the first thing we
I'm
actually,
Sandeep, don't. I will be off for the video, but I'm
yeah,
done.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to
So
have my food because my sugar.
yeah, yeah,
Don't
sure.
want
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting that we had moments of food and all that. So it's very interesting to see from Capricorn Lagna, Saturn is the Mool Trikon kind of thing ruling the second house of food. So you can actually see some kind of karma with food,
absolutely.
maybe some delay with food, all that, or Saturn kind of karma with food. That's something I can say. Now, I want to actually start off with what Dr. Pai said in the beginning of the video, like in which how you have the Vasus as being the tenants inside a space, inside a container. So I've seen that that word tenant is very important because I've seen that many times with the Dhanishta Nakshatra native. I've seen straight up they'll be extremely rich because they have tenants, because they have real estate property. I've seen that a lot of real estate, a lot of apartments, a lot of flats. Rental income is very strong for real estate. In fact, when people ask me what career should they have and if they have prominent planets in real estate, I will tell them you should be doing some kind of real estate anyways. So second lord, 11th lord, all that kind of thing, definitely some kind of real estate. I always say that. Real estate money is kind of guaranteed with Dhanishta. And I've seen that. I've seen that almost always. With Dhanishta, they will do real estate or there will be some kind of real estate kind of karma. Now, the other aspect about other thing also which Dr. Pai started off was talking about prenups and stuff so I've seen that kind of aspect also, like how the marriage kind of thing, either they might have some kind of karma in because they're having to have this prenup or kind of thing, or they are going to have marriage in which there is a prenup involved and so forth, which can be challenging also. That's one of the things I've seen. The a couple of other points I just want to highlight also is that because the Ashta Dikpalas can also be connected with Dhanishta, which Dr. Pai also said, because Dhanishta is the Ashtavasus, so the 8 directions can also be linked with Dhanishta. So traditionally, when you do Sandhya Vandan in the morning time or evening time, Sandhya, or even noon time or midnight time also, you offer water to the 8 directions. Now, this is a very simple remedy I've seen working. If you have, it's a very simple remedy for Dhanishta as such also, because the Dhanishta itself translates as wealth. The wealth is Dhanishta is like you have wealth here. Now, when you offer water to the 8 directions, literally, usually we usually offer water only to Arghya is offered to the Surya, and that's maybe you might offer it to Pitris, and that's about it. But if you start honoring the 8 directions, offering water, that's a very powerful remedy in my opinion. I've seen that can be very powerful. That's a very, even if you just do it any time of the day, that also helps out. I've seen that's a very, very powerful thing. So that directional kind of strength is very important. And this 8 directional thing also I've seen that they have a strong link with Vastu also in general. Now, say there is a malefic in Dhanishta Nakshatra, I've seen that they might have problems with the Vastu of their home also. Perhaps they are in a wrong Vastu home, or some kind of Vastu of one of the directions having some problem, something like that. That's also one of the things I've seen. Now, the other thing I can say, we talked about dolphins also a lot. One thing as lesson on about dolphin is that they do travel in groups. Now, and remember the animal here is also the female lioness. The female lionesses always are hunting in packs, in pride. There's the pride of lions. And I've seen that they do have a group kind of karma. So either they are always in groups, they're part of a very famous group. In fact, these are the natural, what do you call it, the mafia types. They are hanging in the group is powerful and so forth. And because like the thing about the female lioness is trying to hunt someone. So I've seen that usually in Indian context, you could say these are the group of students who are constantly ragging others and so forth, that kind of thing I've seen. And then they all eventually become like their own kind of thing going on. Because when you're in a group, suddenly the energy is different. Of course, there is also very high-end, better thing of this in which there is something, for instance, Elon Musk has a plant in Dhanishta. Now, he was actually, a group of people who was actually linked with the initial company of PayPal is actually called as the PayPal Mafia. And each of them went on to become extremely successful kind of things. It's like a group of lionesses forming like, becoming their own lion in the end, that kind of thing. The other aspect of lioness I want to touch was that in the lion thing, in the life of a lion, usually the lionesses hunt for the animals. and then the lion gets to eat it. So I've seen that if you are a female, you have a planet here, there's a good chance that the spouse might be making more money than you. You know, like in the sense that the females would be making more money and the females would be bringing more food to the table. And that's an actual literally kind of thing I've seen. I've actually seen that to be true. And it might be they'll be happy in marriages, they'll be in happy marriages, but the females might be making more money. There's a tendency for that in general. Or the females might be coming from more wealthier families and things like that in general. That's a simple thing. Maybe they might have more assets, more properties, stuff like that also. I've seen that also. Now, the other aspect I want to, and part of this Dhanishta thing, remember I talked about PayPal. PayPal is a financial kind of a thing, you know. So I've seen many times Dhanishta Nakshatra natives are very good with financial instruments. They are involved in stocks. They are talking about bonds, you know, that kind of, they are talking about trading and all that, markets and all that. They're very strong in that kind of thing. So again, I've seen they're very good with finances. I think UG talked about how the fifth house is falling in Taurus. So that makes perfect sense with that. Now, one interesting thing about the symbol of Dhanishta I've seen, I talked with a native once, and then I was telling the symbol of Dhanishta is drum and a flute. And then native was literally telling, it's funny, wherever I travel, I actually carry with me a drum and a flute. Literally a Native American drum and a Native American flute I was actually carrying. And that's very interesting. I think that those are very powerful remedies for Dhanishta also. Buying a drum and buying a flute, that way you can actually activate that also. Now, the other aspect of Dhanishta, especially with the Aquarius Pada of Dhanishta, there are two things here. One is that if you look at the sixth house from Aquarius Pada, Mars is actually getting debilitated in Ashlesha. So I've seen that when you have problems with the real estate, property, and stuff like that, when you do we briefly touched about it in the beginning itself, with Mars having the Karka of debt, right? So Mars being the Karka of debt. So you can see that sixth house of debts, Mars is actually getting debilitated here also. So doing this category of mantras called as Rinmojan Mangal Stotra. There are many Rinmojan mantras. You can find Rinmojan Mangal Stotra. You can find Rinmojan Ganesh Stotra. You can even find Rinmojan Hanuman Stotra and Rinmojan Narasimha Stotra also. Again, you can see the category of all these deities are actually Martian deities, Narasimha, Hanuman, and Mangal, right? So you see that kind of theme. So you see that particular theme of Rinmojan kind of thing here. And I've seen that doing this Rinmojan Stotra is very powerful also. So any kind of real estate problem, you're not able to sell your house, you're not getting a house, all that kind of thing. Rinmojan is a very powerful mantra here. Now the other side of it is very interesting that 12th house from Aquarius is actually Capricorn, where Mars gets exalted now. Now a very simple ritual I've seen, or simple suggestion I've seen, is to actually get a print of, or make a Mars yantra, laminate that yantra, and put a right candle on top of the Mars yantra. Now this can be the Mars yantra, either the number grid yantra also works, the other, you can print that yantra out also, the Martian yantra for the planet, and even just putting a red candle there when you go to sleep, that can actually activate that protective energy around you before you go to sleep. So it's one of those sleep-based remedies in my opinion. That's a potential remedy for sleep. There's actual lighting a red candle on top of a Mars yantra before you go to sleep. So that because Mars is getting exalted in the 12th house of sleep when you're considering Aquarius Padas and so forth. Now the other, in my opinion, anything with, because the deity here is Ashtavasus, anything with 8 can be linked with Dhanishta. So you have the Ashta Lakshmis, for instance. Now in my opinion, though, the real deity for the Dhanishta is actually the Ashtabhairavas. So Ashtabhairavas are the 8 forms of guardian deities, 8 forms of Bhairavas, 8 kinds of Shiva's extreme forms. And one of the forms was, definitely there is one form of Bhairav in which he is dancing the Tandav dance, if I'm not mistaken. That is the Vikrant Bhairav. I think that's a temple in Ujjain. And there's apparently one of the, so a student of mine who actually had a planet in Dhanishta, he was talking about this Dabral Baba. And you know, he was apparently there is this Dabral Baba who was like a worshipper of this Vikrant Bhairav in Ujjain or something. And apparently this form of Bhairav was the more extreme form of Bhairav in which he was doing the Tandav dance of destruction. But then this guy was actually worshipping this Vikrant Bhairav in
I guess.
Yeah, Kal Bhairav, yeah. Kal Bhairav, for sure, yeah, Kal Bhairav.
Mahara Bhairav.
Yeah, Bhairav, yeah. Samhara Bhairav, yeah. Samhara Bhairav, yeah, that's right. So Samhara Bhairav is the Vikrant Bhairav specifically. Yeah. And this Dabral Baba was, the saint Dabral Baba was actually worshipping him in a sattvic manner. So he was trying to eradicate the fear around this worshipping this Bhairav or this extreme deity form. So I've seen that it's very interesting that these natives might have some link with Bhairav. They might have to go to get the blessings of Bhairav kind of deities. They might do some Bhairav puja, Bhairav sadhana, and then actually inclined to fierce deities also. That's also a very strong thing. So again, the Bhairav is the guardian deities also in many ways. So they are the protectors of temples in many ways. So that's also a very interesting thing when you go to those Bhairav, and there are many in those regions, Ujjain and so forth. You find a lot of Bhairav kind of thing going, like a lot of Bhairav sadhana. Yeah, there's all Shabar Matra, that all that kind of category. You find all that there, So that's one very powerful thing. Now the other thing you can say is also because Mars is also Shakti. You've actually seen this real Shakti kind of deities also, Shakti sadhana, all that kind of thing also. I've seen that. So Mars can also be considered as the goddess also. So goddess is also the hardcore, the warrior goddess energies is something I've seen. Remember, Durga as a goddess is actually riding a lion. So there is an actual link with a warrior goddess here also. I've seen that as well, with here. Either these natives might be doing a lot of Shakti sadhana or Shakti's, Shakti kind of worship, that kind of thing also I've seen. And in general, they'll be doing a lot of strength, very strong kind of worships in general, strong kind of mantras and stuff like that. Now, the other aspect about Mars being exalted in 12th house from Aquarius Pada is that, Mars is also athleticism, and you'll find a lot of football players here, because Mars is actually exalted in the 12th house of feet. So you'll find that they are much more inclined. There's a reason why football is probably the most popular sport in the world and so forth because of that. I've seen that kind of a thing play out. And football, you can see that with Satabisha being the circle or the sphere, the ball which you play out and so forth also. Now, the other aspect, because Mars is exalted, Mars is also the Karaka for fire. I've seen in some cases they do have a tendency to catch fire quickly because, they might, the houses get burned quickly, or some story about house being burned or they being saved from the house being burned, all that. Of course, Mars is the fourth lord of house also. Maybe there's some story about fire that they might have to share. So in general, they might have to be careful around fires and stuff like that. Now, definitely the mother being Ganga is a very important thing. And Ganga, I've seen, what is interesting is that I was talking to this lady from the US, and I was asking her, she had a plant in Dhanishta, she apparently traveled to India and so forth. So I asked her, did you ever take a dip to Ganga and dip in Ganga and stuff like that? So she said that, yeah, initially I was very, very hesitant about taking a dip in Ganga. It's so cold. Why should I take it? I was kind of hesitant. But the moment when everyone was about to take the dip, I was the first one who was jumping into the river. I don't know why, but something compelled me to do that dip in the Ganga river. Now, not many people know that, but you can actually buy Ganga Jal from Indian stores. Keeping that, and I think Dr. Pai had once mentioned that keeping Ganga Jal on your altar in your mandir is actually protective kind of thing for your own home and so forth. There won't be any ghosts. I mean, it is a protective kind of influence also. You can see that. In fact, there are many people who would actually use the Ganga Jal to offer it to the Shivling and so forth also. You can actually do that. So Ganga Jal is something you can actually buy and actually use that also. That can be a powerful remedy as well. Now, the other aspect is definitely, what was very fascinating was when EVG was actually describing about the heart. And the heart is actually having 4 chambers also. And heart is actually having 4 chambers. And you can almost think that as the 4 chambers along with the Vasus also there. Potentially there might be a very strong link with heart. And remember, it's the rhythm. Dhanishta is the drum, which is symbolizing the rhythm. So you have this heart-based rhythm kind of thing, heart-based karma, like pulse readers, reading the pulse of the heart, potentially like arrhythmia, that kind of thing happening, that kind of problems around the heart, especially if you have malefics there. So if you have a heart condition, you have to work out and so forth, that kind of thing I've seen. Definitely Dhanishta, if you have a planted Dhanishta, one way or the other, you'll be working out at some point. That's also expected because Mars is exalted there also. Now, the other very interesting story, which I forgot to, which was interesting, one thing about Bhishma, was that the story goes that about Ambambika and Ambaliga, in which how Vedavyasa, Dr. Pai talked about this also, how Vedavyasa was the one who actually impregnated the three sisters, of which, it said that all 3 sisters did not like the old sage, being impregnated by the old sage. So Amba apparently closed her eyes, and then Vedavyasa impregnated her, because of which the child became blind.
It was 2 sisters, Ambika and Ambalika.
And one was the maid.
Oh, one of the maid. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2 sisters. Okay, that's right. Yeah, but the story goes that Ambika became blind. She closed her eyes as Vedavyasa was impregnating her, and because of which the child became blind. Dhritarashtra became blind. The second sister was like shivering because Vedivasa was doing. So because with the Pandu became the, had a skin issues and so forth. So I've seen that usually the
became pale because she turned
pale.
pale. So Pandu.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so she turned pale, so Pandu became pale. So now this is actually pointing to the importance of moment of conception. That is the real thing. So when you conceive with high energy, you're doing rituals and you're conceiving, then the child could actually carry that that's exact state of moment of conception. Because at the moment of conception, there is an energetic bond which is formed between the mother and father souls with the child souls, which is inviting the child souls also. This is a very important thing. So I've seen that there are couples who actually do. This is an actual thing also. In Chinese medicine, they actually recommend the husband and wife to go through a certain period of celibacy before they actually conceive. Because it said that the energetic state of the man and the woman at the moment of conception can become very powerful with regard to the overall health of the future child. So they do go through that. But again, it's also pointing to the importance of moment of conception. In the story, it says that the maid was so happy that the sage was impregnating her to the point where the child actually became the famous Vidur, who was the wise advisor to the king. So you can see how that moment of conception was an important thing. Well, they say that now what is the problem if you get drunk and have sex and have a child, right? Now they say that some children, the speaker who shared this thing was saying that if a family of doctors had a child, that child became a drug addict, alcohol addict, all that, and brought the entire family's fortune to a point. So you see that kind of theme going on. And perhaps the moment of conception might be an important thing. And there are, I wish Shiviji was here so she could have given more tips on moments of conception, like what is the astrological thing to watch out for. Maybe Dr. Pai, you could also share also. That's also one more thing I could say. But that's something I wanted to highlight with the Amba and Ambika story along with that. Because you see that you're talking about the child, the fourth house, the father, mother, a child kind of thing going on opposite to that and so forth. Now, the other aspect about Dhanishta is that is now at Dhanishta, Aquarius Pada is very interesting because now you are actually entering into a Rahu role sign of Aquarius. Now here, Rahu is actually linked with Varaha, and Varahi is the consort of Varaha avatar apparently. Now Varahi is the leader amongst the Ashtamatrikas also. So it's a very interesting thing. You can see this leadership quality. These natives might have a very strong leadership kind of thing going on. And of course, you can worship Varahi. All that is very good. I've seen that kind of thing can be very interesting. And of course, there is a tendency because it's a Rahu ruled sign and because it's in Saturn ruled sign, there is a potential that they only learn certain lessons in life only when they mature into old age. Perhaps when they are young, they don't understand what they've been through or what the kind of predicament they were in or before. And then once the illusion of Rahu comes down, or when the Saturn begins to mature with them with time, they begin to understand a lot of aspects about their life. Now, of course, Mars is getting debilitated in the 7th house from the Capricorn Pada, so there is definitely some marriage argument kind of thing. Usually the argument I've seen is that either they're trying to be logical with their spouse and the spouse is not being logical. And then there's this logical kind of thing. They're trying to fix a problem. It's always around some problem being fixed. That's when the anger kind of heats up in the room. So one easy way is to actually take breathing exercises, do that, or try to calm that down. Try to seek professional help in general if you can. Because usually when you try to fix the problem yourself, then you're creating more problems also. That's also one aspect there. Now, very interesting thing with the heart-based thing is that because in Chinese, you'll find because it's connected with the elements here, and we briefly talked about the elementals. I've seen that many times these natives can actually master the elements. These are the natives who can bring rain. These are natives who feel, okay, I see a rain coming, maybe a rain is coming. I see maybe wind is coming. And I've seen, and it used to be that this was an actually important thing with regard to alchemy and so forth. In alchemy, you actually had to master the 4 elements, and perhaps it's also the four containers and the 4 Shaktis residing within those containers is pointing to the 4 elements also, which is an alchemical kind of thing. So I've seen that many times. I've seen people with interest in alchemy, people who are keen on doing a lot of alchemy, like a lot of Chinese internal alchemy, like doing this Taoist meditation in which you are actually engaging with the elements and so forth. I've seen that also. Of course, there is also the alchemical kind of thing in which you are on the Indian version of alchemy with rituals and so forth, with Shakti Sadhana and so forth. Also, the other the European version of alchemy, in which you try to do the ritualistic around elements and so forth. I've seen that also. Now, one thing is, and perhaps the last, well, two more points which I can say is very interesting is that if you make Purabhadrapada Nakshatra as the ascendant, exactly 12th house from Purabhadrapada Pada 3 is where you have the exaltation Pada of Mars, which is Dhanishta Pada 2. So it's almost like Purabhadrapada in general is a dragon. So you find this, the dragon literally leaves a mark of destruction. And the mark of destruction of a dragon is a fire. You know that a dragon has come here if it's everything is flame, everything is fire, everything is in flame and so forth. You begin to see this interesting link between Dhanishta and Purabhadrapada, whose animal is also a lion. So you begin to see this kind of a theme between lioness and lion, in which the words you speak is actually creating flames, with your spouse or whatever. So that kind of thing is actually this argument, and usually it could be that perhaps these natives feel comfortable, and these are the couples who are constantly fighting, but they're comfortable fighting. They don't feel a problem because they're fighting also at the same time, because that's the language they understand. Lions only roar at each other, but lions are roaring at the same time. That's how they communicate also. Potentially it's what they say is that because their native is grown up in around such a situation, because they are used to that kind of energy, that's why that other person is also kind of communicating to you in that particular way also. That's also one more thing I've seen. Now, the final thing I want to touch here is that of something I've seen, especially with abortions and so forth. I've seen that a lot. I've seen, like what Dr. Pai was saying, that was one of the first things you had taught us about Nakshatra also, this theme of like abortions and this theme of with child and problems also. I've seen that also. I've seen that a lot. Usually either these natives having some kind of tendency for abortion, either they have had an abortion story or someone in their family has had abortions. Or I've seen that, and that's an important thing to recognize, not to have abortions in general. I mean, of course, some medical abortions, if the mother's health is at a problem, that's a different thing. Usually there is a karma around abortion, very strong karma around abortion. But interestingly, one of the rituals to heal abortion is apparently to create a horoscope, like create a random horoscope for the child, and then you put dried ginger root in it. You put the four corners, you put with blessed water, you create a random name, a random date of birth for the child. Apparently you use yellow parchment paper, and you can put this 4 drops of holy blessed water, which is like Ganga Jal or something in the four corners. And then you take it to, on a full moon night, you take it to a river. And it's very important, you have to take this paper to a river and you have to address this child's name and say, I release you. And it's very interesting that you have to go to a river to release the child. So that ritual was very interesting to see, because how Ganga was actually releasing the child, was killing the child at the Ganga river, Shantanu's child with her. So I've seen that perhaps these natives might have strong link karma with rivers in general, just because of this. But also usually, I don't know what other remedies you could suggest for abortion in general, Dr. Pai. Anything you could add on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I also see for this whole concept is one remedy that I have come across is also worshipping your guru. Why I will say that also, if you take Dhanishta Nakshatra and if you take the Capricorn side of Dhanishta, then you see an exalted Mercury in the 9th house. Even if you take Aquarius, then you see an exalted Saturn on the 9th house. So an exalted guru should be worshipped to get, to free you from any curses. Now, I'll give you a story of why this is very important. The story is about Parusharam and Bhishma. Parusharam is said to be the teacher of Bhishma when he was young. He took him and taught him. Aditya had a slide on saying, skill in warfare. So in martial arts and warfare was taught by Parusharam. Okay, to him. So what happens is, we know the 3 sisters, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika, were actually kidnapped in a situation where 2 kingdoms, because of a misunderstanding, Bhishma goes, abducts them and runs away with them. Now, when he runs away, then Amba is supposed to be one of the most beautiful princes out there. And she takes a lot of offense because of her being abducted. she would not be a bride for anybody because she was condemned and she will remain a destitute all her life. And this was an anger that, besides her beauty, because of abduction of Bhishma, Bhishma was supposed to get married to them, and he should have taken them in marriage because of the abduction. But because of his Bhishma Pratigna that he had taken, the vow of celibacy he had taken, he had to pledge allegiance to his kingdom of Hastinapur, and Amba then resorted to Parusharam. And she told the story that she was abducted and now he refuses to get married. So, you will have to protect us now. We have to, so Parusharam takes up a fight with his own student, which is Bhishma. And what happens is, this is again very, very important. Bhishma has a secret knowledge of using Pashupastra. Pashupatastra is given by Lord Shiva, and he knew that by use of that astra, he can put the foe to sleep. Okay, but Parashuram was not aware of this. That, this astra, even though Parashuram had this astra, he didn't know that he can actually put the foe to sleep and he can diffuse the thing. But as Bhishma was supposed to use that astra. Astra means divine weapon. It's a divine weapon from Shiva. Immediately, all the gods intervened Bhishma and requested him, saying that please do not use, because then what will happen is you will also get the wrath of Guru Shap, or the curse of a guru for using such weapon on him, and he is your teacher. At the same time, what happens is Pitris, which means the forefathers of Parashuram, they intervene. Who was his forefathers? His father Jamadagni.
Pitris of Bhishma or
Pitris of Bhishma. Pitris of Parashuram. Pitris of Parashuram will intervene Parashuram. See, gods will intervene Bhishma to stop using the Pashupastra. And Parashuram's Pitris, which is Jamadagni and Ruchika Rishi, they will intervene and they will say, you will have to stop this fight with him because he's a Kshatriya and he's trying to protect his land. And you know that you have done a lot of Kshatriya killings, but you have here, when things were, injustice was done to Brahmanas, you had fought those Kshatriyas and given the lands away to the Brahmanas. But here he says, don't do this. This guy is a protector, and so you'll have to let go of him. So one of the ways that you can actually, avoid such disaster is by disrespecting your guru or your teacher. Will also help you in coming out of this curse that you have of, abortion or miscarriage. That is one of them. Another theme that I've also said to many people in my readings is by donating Shringar items to orphanages and young Kumaris in orphanages. By donating that, you'll also appease Mata. Because remember, there are one thing that you have to remember is whenever you come into the Capricorn side of this Dhanishta Nakshatra, they are controlled by the Ashtamatrikas. As you go to the Aquarius side, they are ruled by the Ashtabhairavas. Ashtabhairavas are directly under the control of Shiva. Who are the Ashtabhairavas? Asistanga Bhairava, Ruru Bhairava, Chanda Bhairava, Krodha Bhairava, Unmatta Bhairava, then Bhishana Bhairava, Kapala Bhairava, and Samhara Bhairava. These are the 5 Bhairavas. Each of them have a concept. Who are the Ashtamatrikas? So Asitanga Bhairava has Brahmani. Brahmani is the Shakti of Brahma. Then Maheshwari for Uru Bhairava. Then we have Kaumari for Chanda Bhairava. Then we have Kaumari is from Kumara. Kumara means Khanda. Vaishnavi from Vishnu. The concept of Varahi. Then Indrani, Indras. Then Chamunda, and then Chandi. So these are the Ashtamatrikas. So when you understand which side of the Dhanishta Nakshatra you are, so this usually I do not tell in such courses. We'll have to tell this in the advanced course because otherwise people will not know. Each of these have a different vehicle that they handle, and you have to know how to pacify this. Anyway, so for your question, I think worshipping your ancestors, Pitris, because they also support you. We have talked about this. Worshipping your gurus and also, holding your guru in the highest pedestal is very important. That's why the gods had to intervene Bhishma. Otherwise, he would have used his Pasupatra Astra to kind of put his guru to sleep. Okay. Right. Okay. So, any other themes that you wanted to discuss, both of you?
Yeah, no, that's all. I think one definitely athletics for sure. Yeah, one thing I can say, because Sun is the planet ruling the eighth house. You can see how Bhishma is like, sex life was interrupted by his father. You can see that. So I've seen that kind of interruptions on account of father and so forth. Also, I've seen that kind of thing. You can see some karma with father very strongly, like karma with father to be interfering in your marriage or something like that. Also, that's something I can say also with Dhanishta. The last point I can say is that with Mars in general, well, I think Dr. Pai, you mentioned this about before also, one of the times in before, like how certain lands can carry certain emotional energies. So you buy some land, and then the family was doing distress selling, and then you're selling the land. You buy the land in distressed way, like other people group just want money, but they are suffering some kind of problems. You get the land cheap and you buy it, and then ever since you got that land, problems start to come in your own family. It's almost like you borrow the problems from the other family. So I've seen that kind of that effect also here, depending upon malefics, Rahu, Ketu, all that kind of thing going on. So yeah, that's one thing I've seen. Watch out if there is any history on that front. If any land came in is correlating with any of the problems you have, and usually it's definitely linked with Nagas. That land, the snake was killed, there's a dosh in the land, the puja hasn't been done, some variation of that. So usually there's also this story about this Vastu guy was telling. Well, this guy was telling how a carpenter who was a Vastu guy said, I can't put my mark the initial foundation stone here because the land is not right. And then they started to do the thing. They established new land and so forth. The guy was like, okay, I don't want your thing. I'll just go get an engineer to build a house. So he went and built the house. And then 2 days later, his wife died. And then 10 years later, his son grew up and married off, and then when problems between both the sons and wives and all that, and then eventually they had to abandon this land. Turns out that land was having a lot of history of Nagas being crawling, and a lot of snakes were killed and so forth also. So that kind of thing. So that's a very interesting kind of a story. Like maybe Dr. Pai, maybe the last bit I can ask you to share if there is any insights on that.
There is also an incident that I have heard about. This is a very, very rare situations you will see this. What I heard long back, and I have not seen the chart. It was not my prediction. It was a prediction of a great astrologer who had predicted, who had asked in the looking at the chart. This is a very rare prediction. Is your wife learning any musical instrument? So the person says, yes, my wife is learning musical instrument. He asked, is she learning tabla? This is very rare. Women, usually you don't see that people who would be, they would do other musical instruments very commonly, but a woman wanting to learn the tabla is a very rare thing. So he asked, anything with drums or tabla? He said, yeah, she is learning classical, music, also learning tabla from her teacher. And he said, currently she is in the class. She's learning tabla. He said, yes, that's what my wife has said. And he says, your wife has already planned to run away with the tabla teacher. He was shocked. Only when he reached home, he found out that his wife has left a note that she has eloped or she has ran away with the tabla teacher. Now, all of these themes, if you see, there can be only one nakshatra which matches is Dhanishta nakshatra. Why? First of all, it's the Chara nakshatra. Remember that. Secondly, whenever we see that it's a Gemini ascendant, let us say, or Cancer ascendant, Dhanishta can fall in the 8th Okay. And then we also talked about Bhishma abducting Ambalika. So it's a kind of elopement, but or rather abduction, to say the least. But again, tabla teacher, why? Because it is drums. Okay. So it's very interesting to see that sometimes through prashnas or through readings you can say such things. I have never done such readings, but I can tell you when somebody tells you such themes, you will definitely see some stories like this I want to share. Also in prashna you can also say, remember Parashuram was from the Bhargava clan, from the Venus. Bhargavas are from the Venus. So Bhishma always had a problem with Venus, all the women. He had to fight his own guru, but the devatas came and stopped him, and likewise for Parashuram, his pitris came and stopped him to not to battle it out. But otherwise, if you see, if he had listened to his guru, then probably he would have taken, he would have done something for Ambalika, but again, these are some of the situations that you will see that people will come. But how would you be? That is the depth of astrology. If somebody can really predict that your wife or your partner is eloping with your tabla teacher, then it becomes a fantastic story. I don't know, what sort of thing is that. But
But
again,
ignorance is bliss, Dr. Pai, knowing many things.
I know. But if somebody has to pinpoint like that, then
Yeah,
you will have
of
to
course.
know. So there could be again. So there are so many themes. One more thing that I wanted to point out with Dhanishta, which nobody pointed out, is first of all, I want to say that Dhanishta is one of those nakshatras which is very good for satellite launching. One is this a Chara nakshatra, another one is a Urdhva Mukha nakshatra, which is facing upwards. So, people who I have seen more with Satabhishak as well as, all these Chara, Shravana, Dhanishta, Shatabhishak, where they're interested in, aeronautics, aerodynamics. Mars is there, Mars is the engineer or the engine or the fuel, which helps you to, take off. So you see a stream of nakshatras which are there, which are all Urdhvamukha, Shravana, Dhanishta, Shatabhishak, all of them, they are all Chara nakshatras. So that's the runaway. And Mars gets exalted here. So definitely it is something to do with, um, you know, run away or run away. I don't know. So those might be the themes that might be there. But great points, I think, by both of you, by E and Kapil as well. Before some fantastic points, I was making notes of some of them because whenever
I
we
have one more thing to discuss.
sure, go ahead.
You share the screen. So I made a record table of what all videos and what all times.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow,
Ashwin
3 hours.
is at 3 hours, 48 minutes, 20 seconds. And there are corresponding, but let me point out all this. Anuradha, 3 hours, 30 minutes, 32 seconds. Jeshta, 3 hours, 3 minutes, 51 seconds. And Dhanishta is, at least I remember now, I know it has gone like 3 hours and 6, 7 minutes. So it is more than that. So what do you see speciality on all these nakshatras?
Mars connection is there.
No Mars connection. Mars debilitates, Mars Rashi, Mars exact. What's happening? And this we are not done purposely or something.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely there is because see, Mars has to do with your passion for astrology, being the natural eighth house lord of Scorpio.
Yeah.
First house lord, eighth house lord. So, and then he gets Digbala whenever he comes into Capricorn, and that too he exalts there the directional strength he gets. So, all of these things, maybe that is what makes. And remember, for a Capricorn Dhanishta, if Mars is debilitated in the seventh house, also it is its Marana Karaka Sthana. Seventh house, he feels very dead. Forget about the debilitation. Okay, that's the secondary thing. Debilitation doesn't give you, which means, as we have discussed, it doesn't make you weak in any way. But the Maranakaraka sthana of Mars will definitely bring some problems in marital issues that I feel. Okay, and the other sign, if you go into the Aquarius sign, is the Mula Trikona of Sun. Wherever Sun in Mula Trikona is there and that comes in the 7th house, do you think it can give you a great marriage? Sun burns whatever house there it represents or where its
Now,
Trikona is.
other thing which you will see in this is the Ketu's Nakshatra. We talked minimum in Ketu, Mula, 1 hour 45 minutes. We didn't talk about Maga because Dr. Pai already did speak. That Nakshatra was gone. So Ketu Nakshatra somehow we don't do. And Mars Nakshatra we talk a long time.
True. Yeah.
Something
It's I also think the Dhanishta. I don't think it's an accident that Dhanishta is going 3 because 3 is Shravana in my view. So you can see this Dhanishta link with Shravana Nakshatra, which is 3. 3 steps and all that. Vishma was the one who gave Vishnu Sahasranama to Kanani was Vishnu and so forth. So it's very interesting in that regard. Definitely that Mars rule Nakshatra is having a 3 link. So almost like Dhanishta is having a link with Shravana also. So yeah. Definitely,
I will
very interesting.
what happens in Shatabisha, that's a Rahu rule Nakshatra. So that will be okay. That's
2.5, right? Yeah. I think that should be 2.5. That can be the prediction.
Anyway, guys, I think if there is any more points you wanted to share, we can share and then we can probably wrap up today's session. I know it's very, very late here for you guys as well. I know for something.
I am okay. I am fine. I'm 11:30 p.m. So I'm
yeah. Only thing I want to say was that with Dhanishta, probably it's a good thing if you start doing some mantras. If you're not doing anything, Mars is exalted here, you might actually channelize that energy in a positive direction. So it's a very good thing if you start doing some mantra sadhana and all that. That's what I would actually say. That's the only thing I had to say. If you don't have anything,
to go dip in some holy
Ganga
water.
River, Ganga River. Yeah, imagine, invoke the Ganga River on a daily basis. Put that on your head.
Mississippi
Put that
River.
on your head.
River at least you have.
Yeah, go to a closer river, take a river bath and that kind of thing for sure. Yeah, I would say that for sure. I think land is also, I would definitely encourage Vastu, looking more into Vastu. Like look at Vastu problems, anything, study Vastu for sure, that kind of thing. Try to match the colors at least if you can. Because Venus is colors also. Try to wear positive colors and so forth rather than wearing the depressive black always. I know I'm wearing black, but still,
I recollect the color of Dhanishta is silver gray, I guess.
Okay. Right. So, yeah. So, silver gray for sure, I can say that. Color for sure, I've seen color changes a lot. Planets are also linked with colors. So usually, like people who are depressed, they are wearing black, gray, or something along those lines. But then what I've seen, I can definitely say with Ashtavasu, the 8 rays of light, right? So 8 colors can also be a potential solution there. That's one more thing. And then with Dhanishta, I can also say yogis, blessings of yogis also. There's also one more thing with Mars being exalted, brahmachari and all that, right? And all the pilgrimage to like Hanuman temples or even like Subramanya temples, all that. So that's something I can also add.
One more to add is let us not forget that this connection that I've always maintained with the Dhanishta is of Harihara, which is half Hari and half Hara. And Harihara Sutta is Ayyappa Swami. So don't even, that's about bringing your celibacy. He is also a celibate thing in this. Bhishma is also about celibacy. So you can see a very strong connection with Ayyappa Swami in this nakshatra as well. Okay. So anyway, so any other points or shall we wrap up today's session, guys? So I think it's been another blockbuster. And
another blockbuster.
So we have crossed Sholay. I don't know what was Sholay picture.
Sholay is 3 hours, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So every time we give such blockbusters, I'm sure if anybody who has reached here and is watching this, hats off to you guys. I don't think I would also survive till this end. But anyway, this gives, your comments always encourages us. So please keep sharing your comments and let us know what you feel.
I will try to answer as much as possible, but we'll do that. I will do that from my side.
Yeah. So I think we have left with only a few more nakshatras because this is a commitment I think we have given to the cosmos, saying that after this we are always ready to. I generally make fun and saying I'm ready to leave this world after finishing this series, because I think this is my karma that I have to.
We started from Ashlesha. So are we finishing in Revati or are we going till Ashlesha?
Yeah, I think it'll be what Pushya, right? Pushya, the grand finale, Pushya.
Yeah, the grand finale Pushya.
Right.
Yeah.
So we will continue this series, and let's see how quickly we can finish. Okay, thank you everybody, and thanks Sandeep and Aditya.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Bye.